Rome Town Board budget meeting for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 to order. Number 2, roll call, starting from my left.
Jamadi here.
Minter here.
Hasdell here.
Goldman here.
And Mr. Barhide is not here. Number 3, certified posting of the meeting, please.
I certify that on Wednesday, September 21st, 2022, the agenda for the Town of Rome Board Budget Meeting for Wednesday, September 28th, 2022 was emailed to the Wisconsin Rapids Tribune at 11:10 a.m., posted at Rome Town Hall at 11:15 a.m., at Quick Trip LLC at 11:27 a.m., and Nakusa Port Edwards State Bank at 11:20 a.m.
Thank you. Number 4, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, citizen comments. Any turned in? Carbon cards?
No.
Discuss and possible action on the following items. Number 6, discussion and action, review 2023 Town of Rome budget. Budget questions, 2023 health insurance changes, HSA wellness, and payment in lieu. You want to start off with that, Jamie?
Yep. So, last meeting I had mentioned that as we refine individual budgets, remember we're gonna be chaotic and we're gonna sort it down, that I would distribute our property tax levy at the front of every meeting to kind of show where we were at. There were several of the budgets that were yellow highlighted last time because we were taking estimations. They hadn't been fully formed, right? Because we were working through the process. We have more of them that are formed through. Several of them you're going to hear today. And we can discuss as we go through the budgets how we are at this number. But we have less of a gap than we had last time. And we have 2 budgets that I have highlighted yet in yellow. And we can talk about parks you haven't seen yet, that's next time. And library, we had a little change, so we can talk through that. But why I share this first along with the health insurance piece is because the items that were presented, I know you guys have been copied on all of the emails that have been going out about health insurance. So I had distributed the first email at the last meeting, and then you've seen the subsequent emails as we've started open enrollment, which started on Monday. These health insurance pieces are included in the numbers that you're seeing in this property tax levy amount. So we'll go through this in a little bit greater detail, but I hand out the levy piece and the shortfall with you knowing that that's how we account it for the health insurance in the budget at this moment. So talking a little bit more about health insurance, and why I want to address that first, is it affects all of these budgets. If you make a change in those decisions, all these numbers change. And then there would be new budgets for all of the departments. That's why we date stamp them, so if there is a change, then it reflects what you would have as the most current. But it's between salaries and health insurance, those are numbers that affect across everything. So I distributed in your packet the 2023 decision guide. And I just want to point out on page 15, you see the monthly premiums. I think it's easier to kind of talk through this when you can actually see the plans that are offered. But because we are part of the state health insurance plan, these are all the plans that someone could select from. If you are more comfortable going to Aspirus, you can select Aspirus. If you're more comfortable going to Security, you can select Security. But as a municipality, we can only cover up to 88% of the Tier 1 provider for our county. And for Adams County, the Tier 1 provider is GHC of Eau Claire, Greater Wisconsin. So that relates back to the first health insurance email where I said the premium cost that the town could cover would be be $621.97 for a single and $15.25 for a family. That's 88% of the tier 1 provider. So if I don't select GHC of Eau Claire and I select Aspirus, the town would cover $621 of the $952, or $1,525 of the $2,347. The employee would have that remaining balance. So we have budgeted that regardless which health insurance plan you pick, we would cover up to that $621.97 and the 15 in all of the budgets that are represented. So, just for conversational purposes, I don't think that this is a plan that anyone would necessarily pick because they don't really have coverage locally here. But if you picked Mercy Care Health Plan, you'd get $621 covered per month of the $636 expense for that plan. Because it's kind of a balance across all of them. Some people might pick a more expensive plan, some people might pick a less expensive plan. That's their prerogative to pick through open enrollment. So today, we would want to make sure that we had agreement that we would be covering the 88%, because again, that adjusts our numbers. Following to that we would take that increase in the HSA, the increase in wellness, and the increase in the payment in lieu. So for the HSA, the increase would be an additional $500 for single and $1,000 for family. The,
Wow.
What does that bring their total, what the
Yeah.
contribution have to get from us then?
yep, so for a single, it would be $2,625,
2,625.
and for a family, it would be $5,250. And we don't pay that in a lump sum. We would pay that in 2 amounts next year, so you would get half in January and half in July. The wellness incentive would go up $50, both for individual and for family. So the wellness would be $1,250 individual, $3,250 for family. Now you do have to achieve the 30 points, wellness points in a year. Those that have not achieved those 30 wellness points at the end of this year will not receive the wellness benefit next year. Because you had to sign an agreement at the end of last year saying you would achieve 30 points through this year for the wellness benefit. That is paid out in 4 payments through the year, and it could be taken taxable or put into your HSA pre-tax until you hit the max for an HSA contribution. And then the payment in lieu our payment in lieu has been steady for a very long time. I don't know that actually since we've put in place a payment in lieu that it's been increased, but that would be a $500 increase for a single to $3,500 annually, and a $1,000 increase to family for $5,500, meaning you are not on our health care plan. You're getting health care plan someplace else.
How many employees are utilizing that, do we know?
3 or 4. Our total count though, because we are on the state health insurance plan, if you qualify for WRS, meaning 1,200 hours in a rolling calendar year, you have to be offered insurance. It can be prorated if you're part-time, but you have to be offered insurance. So I think right now we have 23 individuals that are able to take health insurance through us. Previous, when we were self-insured, we could set different parameters to that, but the state plan qualification for health insurance is eligibility for WRS.
Might it make sense next year to look into and explore other options for insurance versus the state?
We could, we were in that previous.
Correct?
However, we offer a sick leave conversion. So if you retire from the town and are taking an annuity, you are able to turn your sick leave into payment for health insurance. On a self-insured plan, that is not an option. You have COBRA. After COBRA, you can't continue, which means if we would either not be able to offer sick leave conversion, or we'd have to make a one-time payout, and that could be very expensive.
Right.
Yeah, we have, and that's, thank you. That's part of the police union contract, so we'd have to honor that through the police union contract.
How does that health insurance premium, the 621 or the 1525, what does that compare to what was this year's town contribution?
It's right above that, so this year's town contribution was $614.68.
So the increase in the HSA contribution is being proposed will offset some of the annual increase to the employee.
Depending on which plan you select, yes.
What was the wellness incentive this year?
It was $1,200 and $3,200, so it was $50 less in both
Okay.
cases. And I would mention, because there was the commitment, not everybody took the wellness incentive either. I mean, you have to opt in and then get the 30 points.
Well, it seems like some of the things that you did, I mean, we received those emails too. I mean, it seemed like it was fairly fun and easy to comply.
Thanks.
I mean, they do that down in Adams County too, Be Healthy program. I remember it was pretty fun and easy to comply.
I try to make them fun. I do.
You're lucky it's not through something like Red Brick, which is very difficult to comply. So,
The other piece of this conversation today, and just making sure that we're in agreement, is it is open enrollment. Open enrollment started on Monday. Employees have to make their selections by October 21st. I don't want to wait until October 21st because in a lot of cases, people have to move to that different health plan because WEHS, thank you, is no longer an option. So you can appreciate that if there are questions or if we're not in agreement, we need to sort that out today, because I need to tell people this is what you can count on for next year, so they can have that conversation in their own homes. Like maybe we would switch if they had a spouse or someone else that offered insurance.
we were invited to that. I did go yesterday to listen. I heard the spiel, and they don't really have a whole lot of time to get their paperwork in. I mean, it closes on October, like she said, 21st, so.
Yep.
Sooner is better.
The state always does existing plans first, because anyone that's new to join the state plan happens after. That's why our open enrollment is earlier. I would also mention that the other big advantage to this plan is even after sick leave conversion, or if you retired from us and you didn't have any sick leave conversion for some reason, you can stay on this health insurance until you go to Medicare, and then you can use this as your supplement. As being a part of this as the state program, they offer this to retirees throughout. So it isn't that you would have to find other health insurance options. You could continue on your plan. So if you didn't have any sick leave conversion for some reason, you had no sick leave left, you would private pay. You wouldn't pay through the town, but you could continue with your health insurance plan until you went to Medicare, which was another nice advantage.
And the town doesn't have any expense.
The
It's
town doesn't, but you as an individual can still take advantage of the rates for being part of the state system.
Okay.
What's the net impact to the budget if we were to go with what's proposed here?
So right now, the numbers are encompassed. I didn't do the separate health insurance number for each individual. I mean, it is, but I didn't add it up as a total. But if you accepted these changes, you'd be about, at this moment, 26,000 short in the budget. So if there was changes here that you didn't want to do, or it would decrease your 26 shortfall.
So
But
that,
something's driving a calculation somewhere here.
Yes.
The levy for each department.
Well, I get that. I'm just saying that there's an increase in the cost to the town based on everybody who's offered health insurance and what plan they're currently on and what we'd be doing here. I'm curious as to what that number is.
So I could do some fairly quick math on what it would be as a total, cause it's really you'd have the difference between the 600 and the 620 and the 4 and,
Right.
yeah. So, and then just multiplying that by the number of individuals.
How many people on a single versus a family plan multiplied by the difference,
Yeah,
plus our folks that are payment in lieu of?
because you really don't know either what other people are gonna decide, depending on what their spouses might be offered at their place of employment.
Yeah, but,
And if,
right, but still, there's,
no, I'm agreeing with you.
not saying it's gonna make me change my mind on anything here. I'm just curious
I'm-
as to what the magnitude of this is, because if somebody asks a question, we should be able to answer it.
while I pull up a spreadsheet and put in some calculations, you can continue the conversation, but I can get you pretty close on what would be the annual difference.
I guess I really wanna know that too.
Anybody have any other questions on this?
No, I really kind of want to know that answer, because before we, I've been looking at all the numbers too, and I guess with everything that's in this budget, for all of us, you know, we have the 4 meetings scheduled. The last one continues to be on there. This is our second meeting. We're clearly not 50% done. You know, some great things, I mean, yeah, some great things are preceded by chaos. However, when it comes to taxpayer money, budgets with changing numbers are not one of them. And I've been to a lot of meetings with a lot of unhappy people, and allowable levy limit, yes, it went down now, and 26,000, it looks a little better, but, and now we received some new handouts again today, and it looks good on the outside, but sometimes that's not always a good thing either, because we're not sure. You know, I went through the numbers, and now I've got some different numbers again to look at. So in reality, we're bound by certain mandated restraints, and, you know, there's more expenditures still than there's available money. And the numbers we don't have yet are, we do have some new percentages here now on this levy worksheet. But, you know, we gotta look at general government, we've gotta look at solid waste, we've gotta look at library, we've gotta look at the water utility, and I'm more comfortable looking at the whole picture to make some really sound decisions, and I'm glad we're gonna be spending a little bit more time on this today, and I guess, you know, the more I look at this, the more I think about it, I guess you know, with having these new numbers today after the health insurance, the HSA, the 4% increases, and now, you know, really thinking about these other budgets, unless I'm missing something here, we do have more expenditures than money. So I'm thinking, you know, realistic decisions to cut equipment, full-time positions, and with the remaining portion of 7%, it's not gonna go very far, and we're not even to the road maintenance budget and 3 miles of roads. So maybe we seriously gotta think about status quo, and what are we gonna do? Really, what are we gonna do? Find $26,000, cut it, and be done? No equipment, no positions, what?
Well, we're gonna talk through several of the budgets today. We should be over 50% done after today. But I think that question might become more clear as we have the conversation through the budgets.
What was the rationale for increasing the HSA contribution by the 500 and 1,000? If I look at, if last year's number was, say, $600 for a single employee, and it's gonna be rounded off, 622 this year, that's up $22. I'm just curious, why the 501,000? Is that not more than what their out-of-pocket would go up from last year's number? Because I think, didn't we do the HSA last year to try to compensate for the employees' increase in their out-of-pocket, in their premium expense?
We did the wellness to
We did
help
the wellness
off-
last year,
yeah,
okay.
we did the
HS
wellness to
Okay,
offset.
HSA's been around for a while.
Yep, and we didn't change, well, the change to the HSA, previously, we had a dollar amount and then you had to match the additional dollar amount. So if I gave 500, then the town gave 500. We had just combined that and we discontinued the match and created the wellness. So this year, just the piece of the 500 and the 1,000 was, because you could pick, if you did pick a more expensive plan, so if the cost for your plan does go up, to help offset that. And the 500 and the 1,000 has been just sort of our traditional, if we have made an increase on the single versus the family.
And I know to some extent, because of where we are geographically, the fact that the state picked this oddball insurance company to be the provider for the tier 1 provider for Adams County didn't do our employees any favors whatsoever.
Yeah, I
And that's
think,
probably something we don't really have any, at this point in the time, we have no control over that, and we probably had no control over it during the whole process. They just randomly said, oh, Adams County, that's relatively close to Eau Claire, let's pick that one. That's probably how the decision was made.
so they did, this company is expanding. They previously, and if I get these wrong, someone can help me. We're only like in 12 counties prior to this last year. This, in 2023, they'll move to 43 counties. I think they had a desire to wanna expand, but WEA Trust was kind of a powerhouse in the market. So this company is actually the tier 1 provider for most of the state because of that expansion. So,
And I'm going to assume if they're the tier 1 provider, that it's probably like most insurance plans, almost every doctor is in almost every plan as a preferred provider, unless you get, like, say, Marshfield Clinic might have their doctors are reimbursed better through security than they are through any other.
we actually have, through this process of checking physicians, that GHC does cover Aspirus, Marshfield, Gunderson, and they do the Mayo Health Systems. But because they have that broad network, you have to ensure that your provider is covered at the facility that they're going to. So not all doctors, like, just doctor at Aspirus, right? So with this plan, your physician may be covered when you see them at Aspirus, but if they go to the Stratford Clinic or the Marshfield Clinic in Wisconsin Rapids, they might not be covered when you see them there. You would need to make sure that they're covered underneath the organization that this company insures.
It's like a cooperative, is that
Yeah.
what they explained?
Yes,
It was
it's a
like
cooperative.
It's like a cooperative, so you gotta make sure they're at the.
At the
you're
right
going to the-
facility. Right
Right.
facility, right doctor. Gotta have them both.
Yes,
Is
Right
that pretty,
doctor, wrong facility, you're out of luck.
yes.
is that pretty common for the state to offer only one option?
Well, technically they're offering, 15 options, but they only pick one tier 1 provider, yes, because that's how they're setting their rates. There will only be one tier 1 provider for every county.
Any other questions on this? We have,
There's-
well, we have unanswered questions, but I guess we can come back to it.
Well, I think she's working on that number.
I am
She's
working
getting
on the
there.
number. She's getting there.
Where are we at conceptually on that? Because personally, regardless of what the number is, I'm okay with what's presented. But I just want to know what the number is so that if we get questioned by somebody in conversation, well, what was the increase to the town this year for health benefits, especially because they'll people will know that we increase HSA contributions and stuff like that, then we're at least armed with that information.
It's a nice HSA. A lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
That's a very nice HSA.
It is a very nice HSA. It goes a long way towards paying their out-of-pocket.
Definitely does. How, what are you thinking? It affects other decisions we make, but
I mean, in the end, if there's 25 employees on the health insurance plan, if they were all families, it'd be 25, I know our deficit is 26,000, that'd be 25,000, but
it does offset the,
It
if we can only
offsets-
do the 4% and
Right,
do
it
the
helps.
inflation. Right,
right, it's gonna help.
right,
So it's a way to give them extra money,
right. Because of medical
That's
costs and everything.
not tied into their salary
Right.
or their wage. Wait, that's-
Non-taxable benefit, basically.
Well, that makes it even better.
Right.
Plus, it's employer money. I mean, they don't have to put any of their own in if they don't want to, but they can.
And it gets carried over year to year.
Yeah.
In the HSA that you have, you get like a debit card, you can carry it over you don't get penalized if, okay,
No, and it gets taken with you if you
leave.
leave, you get to take it with you.
Okay.
I'm just doing a quick double check on my. Didn't like that money.
Pretty standard on drug costs. That's Medicare. Hey, here we are. No, that's Medicare. Oh, here we go.
This, we don't know.
I love the state's definition of a high deductible health plan.
I know.
My wife works for Aspirus, and that is not their definition of a high deductible health plan.
Now we had 3,000, 6,000.
Uh-huh.
Getting close?
Yep. So,
You need a motion, don't you?
We need number first.
yeah, number first. So your difference in health plan cost for next year would be $20,289. I can break that down for you, that it's an additional $790 in premium cost, $3,500 in payment in lieu,
3,900 in payment of lieu?
$3,500.
Oh, 35, I'm sorry.
3,500 payment in lieu, HSA 15,000, and wellness 1,000 for your total of 29,000.
29?
I thought I had
20, I'm sorry,
20,289.
20,000, and I rounded up for
Oh.
790 for your healthcare plan, so we could go 20,290.
290.
So the premium, 790, then 3,500 for HSA was 15,000 and wellness was,
1,000.
Is that a percentage on that?
No, I don't have a
We don't
percentage
need
on
that.
that. That's just that would be your total increase for what you are proposing, if this is what you accepted. What would be your increase from last year? We'd have to go back to what we proposed from
Sorry.
last year.
what was the 3,500 again? I didn't write it fast enough.
A payment in lieu.
Payment in lieu.
Payment in lieu, that was
Granted,
it.
there's only one person that takes that.
No, I just did the increase, right? I didn't do the total.
Oh, increase. Okay,
this
so
is
there's
the-
7 people that take it.
Yeah, so from what health insurance cost you in net today to what it will cost you next year would be an
20,000.
additional $20,290 across all departments. Is that what you were looking for? Okay.
Yep, thanks.
In a motion?
Do we need a motion?
I would do a motion because it just lends some
Yes.
solidness to the, yes.
Another starting point.
I move that the town's share of the health insurance costs for next year represent the maximum allowable, is it 88 or 87.5?
88.
80, maximum allowable 88% of the tier one provider through the state plan. And that we increase the HSA contribution by $500 per individual or $1,000 per family. The wellness incentive by $50 per individual or per family. And the payment in lieu by $500 per individual and $1,000 per family. Did I get everything in there?
That's a good motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
Cool. Okay,
One down.
so now we go to our individual budgets.
Okay, budgets. So, starting.
Knowing our health insurance numbers are represented correctly, so we are at this moment over the $26,000. We are gonna start today with highway. We started highway last time. So the budget that you should be looking at should have the September 22nd, 2022 date on it. And I also included in the packet the job description for the potential additional employee. So some highlights I just wanna mention here in highway, we did move Firewise and fire signs from the fire budget to the highway budget. They've been in fire in the past, Firewise and the fire signs, but really Firewise happens out of the highway department. That's who picks up the tree waste. That's who files the grant for it. So it makes sense that the deposit of those grant funding would go to offset the employee cost, because that employee cost is in highway, it's not in fire. Additionally, I think fire signs were in fire because they are called fire signs. But they are ordered and installed by the highway department. So moving them over is just a little bit easier for accounting purposes too, to make sure we're not losing money when people order fire signs. Because the sign is going into fire, but if it needs a new post, those are ordered from the highway department and those are in the highway budget.
But now the sign and the post will be paid for out of the highway budget.
Out of highway.
And the guy to put it in the ground,
Yes, or grow, yes.
or grow, that's true. The worker.
On the expense side, again, this does reflect that additional full-time staff member. So you're gonna see the, under super, ooh, we have that listed as superintendent, we should change that description to director, but we charge 85% of the public works director to highway. The other 15% is charged to Derek Hughes, because that's offset on the Derek Hughes grant for the management of the Derek Hughes Park. So that's 85% of the director's salary. Then you're gonna see the public works foreman, and then 3 full-time positions instead of 2 full-time positions. That's gonna decrease your part-time, because we're adding that full-time individual to the department. The other expenses there, unless you have questions as far as training, dues, operations, supplies, fuel, which we did increase for next year. We did add in the additional expense to uniforms if we have that additional employee, because they are provided $350 a year for that uniform expense. The piece about the capital outlay, we had proposed this 2023 International Single Axle Plow Truck. Brad talked about at the last meeting that if we order it, we likely wouldn't get it until hopefully right before the plow season in 2023, because they're behind in making vehicles. But what we are proposing is taking a portion of that 140,000. And instead of borrowing for that equipment, we did receive approximately $200,000 this year in MFL funds. That's one-time funds for when people have pulled their land out of the MFL program. That money right now is in short-term investments with Ellers. Short-term investments, because of the inflation rate, are paying very well. So it's in a 90-day investment. We could put it in another 30, 60, or 90 when it's done. But we'll get all of the 90 days because we're not even to October yet.
What was that number again?
200,000 we received for MFL.
And that 200,000 is not currently reflected in any of the revenues, in any of the budgets,
No.
anyplace?
Because what we receive in MFL is really dependent on whether or not people pull their land out of
Right,
MFL.
it's like a one-time, you can't count on getting that amount every year.
Correct.
But you can, we know we're getting that much next year, or,
We already received
we already
it
have
this
it.
year.
Okay, so this money we already have, it's sort of, it's in a fund that could be used to either offset operations or offset the purchase of a really large piece of equipment.
Yes. And we will earn investment off of it.
Right, until we have to pay for the truck. What's the paying interest rate on that thing right now? Just curious, do you know?
The interest rate,
Yeah, on the money when it's invested.
you know, Tammy told us not too long ago from Ellers, and I wanna say that the short-term investments we're paying from 3 to 4.
It's not bad.
Yeah,
So if it sits there for most of a year, we're gonna get $6,000 or so.
yeah. So we would propose using about $395, to offset that $140,000 expense. It doesn't make sense for us to borrow when the rate to borrow money
More than,
is higher than what we will earn off in interest to essentially utilize the MFL funds.
and then that will reduce then the capital outlay in effect on the road budget from the 140,000 to 20,000.
Yep.
Which in turn will take the numbers over on that levy side and take 120,000 off of that, but some of that's gonna get moved back around.
Yep, so again, the budgets that you see today are reflected in these numbers, so I've already done that. So,
Oh, you've already reflected,
yes. you
what's
are-
here is reflected at 120 already.
Yes, you're still
Okay.
26 in the hole if we would utilize that MFL funds, but we felt utilizing those would be a better solution than taking essentially a short-term or long-term loan.
The one reason I could agree with that in this particular case with this particular piece of equipment, as I recall early on in the 2000s, just because I happen to be here, is the fact that we bought too many snowplows at one particular time. So they've all gotten pretty old. So I know that we probably are in need of this particular piece of equipment. So I happen, in this particular piece, with this particular purchase, happen to agree to take that money to do that. That sounds like a good plan.
And then theoretically, when we get down to the end numbers at the next meeting or the meeting after that, if we were still $20,000 in the hole, we could theoretically, if we haven't used the other 80,000 of the MFL money, we could theoretically take the rest of the $20,000 of that truck and use that to offset, but leaving it where it is right now to see how it works out in the end, correct?
You could use additional, you could do the whole 140. I picked 120 because it wasn't the whole amount, and because I have some other ideas I wanted to present today that aren't reflected, that might help to fill that
Well,
gap.
let's listen to our other ideas.
Yeah,
Maybe
well,
you'll-
right. No,
yeah,
no,
right.
right, I
where you're
know.
Going though, I was
Right.
thinking the whole. Yeah,
Well, but that's why I
just
said
be over
in
and
the,
done with it,
well,
yeah.
that's why I said in the end, at that last meeting, when we put together the final numbers that we're gonna present to the
Right.
people, if we're still $20,000 in the hole and we still have 20,000 left in MFL,
Agreed.
you know,
Do-
because no, it doesn't make any sense to borrow the money if we have it sitting in a savings account.
Yeah,
Right.
No, if you got cash, use it.
Right.
In this particular
In this
case, I
particular
would
ca-
say that normally I wouldn't say burn through our cash, but in this particular piece for this equipment, knowing that we need snow plows because they were all bought at the same time,
Well,
I agree to it.
And this plow doesn't need a CDL driver for it.
Exactly.
No.
So
this
it can
truck
be
does
used by
not.
more people,
Yes.
well,
All right.
road people.
So you're saying the 140 now has been removed from this?
Hundred and twenty of the hundred and
Well,
forty.
I'm looking at the 140 right now, so that would go down to, go down to 20?
Nope, so you see the 143.95 as the expense.
Yep.
In the revenue, the highway prior year revenue of 135,395, that's encompassing $15,000 of carry forward for their budget and
Plus the
120,395 MFL.
Got it.
So we're offsetting that in that highway prior year
So
revenue.
that's why there's a 85% jump.
Yes,
Okay, gotcha.
Do you have a schedule of the debt obligations of the town that indicates principal and interest on an annual basis and term end dates? I kind of feel like we're flying blind here if
Yeah,
we talk about borrowing.
I know, we were.
What's
supposed to get-
outstanding? When do the notes come due?
so I believe it was distributed at the annual meeting, but I can pull and print that spreadsheet again, cause we put it as part of the budget presentation and part of the annual meeting.
Yeah, I think I had sent you an email and you guys said you were gonna bring it to the budget meeting so we could get an update on that.
Yeah, how many
So
loans
we'd
are
have
out there
some-
too?
What?
How many loans are out there? Is it one or?
Or not.
Oh, no, we got more than that.
Yeah, I was afraid that was gonna, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
There's three at just the two at just the water utility.
two at the water utility.
Yeah,
That includes water on there, on the highway?
No.
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 I'm just looking at highway. We got
Oh,
62,000
no,
outstanding,
we
or due.
don't split loans that way, like when, so highways in a series of loans, but there aren't just highway loans.
Water's paid off in 2025 and 2027. Those two are gone.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 loans right now with the town.
How many in highway?
2 of them, again, we don't split it
It's
that
not
way.
necessarily for highway.
Yeah.
It could be multiple pieces of
So-
equipment across different departments.
There are 3 loans that would encompass highway, but they'd also encompass other items. You've got 2 with the water utility. You have 2 associated with the tax increment finance district. You have 1 associated with the police and EMS building. That one just comes out of general. And then you have 3 loans that are associated with a variety of projects within the town. So I can print this, but it looks like your next payoff date is 2024. That's your Rome Town Center loan, some additional buildings and grounds and equipment.
What was the total of the
balance?
original total of that?
1.9.
Do you have the rate?
I don't have the rate on here.
I think we have the rates on there. I've got the printout here. Printed it on.
Top of your head, do you? No.
What do you need?
No, I'm not sure what the rate is on that one.
See, that's where I start to think, well, okay, maybe a note doesn't sound good when you're just considering this individually, but if we have a note, principal and interest is gonna be far less on a $140,000 truck than it is gonna be on a $1.9 million
Well, right
that
now,
we're paying down.
No, all of your loans right now are at extremely low rates.
But how many years, what was the amortization period of that? And I mean, principal and interest on that we're paying has to be higher on an annual basis, just based on the amount. Forget the interest. I get the interest rate is lower. But if we're, it's a net gain in 2024 when we get there.
Update this spreadsheet. So you're, that other spreadsheet.
you have a call date on one of them, or a payoff date on one of them in 2024. And that's the taxable GO bond that was refunded. I mean, that's the Rome Town Center with the building and grounds and equipment. But there's one through the Board of Commissioners for Public Lands that I was telling you about, that they still have a two-year loan up to 20-year fixed rates that we could still get at 4.5% interest. That's fixed. But if we're gonna look at it as a dumping grounds for everything everybody wants,
Well, no, I'm not
I'm
suggesting
not
that.
going there.
This one.
But if we're talking if we're talking roads, I would consider it. But, you know, we talked capital improvement plans. If we look at a comprehensive capital improvement plan later on this evening for every department, but if she prints out this sheet for everybody, so you guys know what we've got. But this one was as of May 1st, shortly after the annual meeting.
This is gonna show you by department. Could I ask one of the department heads to grab this off the printer, please?
I wouldn't mind a new one, cause my printer was running out of ink.
It's not that same report, it's a different one I just did.
Oh, thank you. HP is a little late on delivery, unless it's
Oh, are you on
Pony.
the-
well,
Are you on
unless
the
it's-
Insta Ink with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am too.
Unless it's Pony Express, that's the problem, I don't know.
So, but you took that one that gets paid off in 2024, you took that in 2013. And I show your principal payment, and again, it's gonna be split between several departments, but
Right.
your principal payment is 415,000.
And I think we refinanced that when the rates were really dirt cheap.
Did you print this one?
Yeah, I printed them both.
Then there was one in
August
2016, I think, that we did with Nakusa Port Edwards, cause that was dirt cheap, but then some things got put in there. There was a couple of call dates on here, I think you guys recently redid, cause your rates were low, and I was looking back through the minutes, I think you guys.
The only
you.
one that we have refinanced in my time here has been the TID loans, and we did that, when we did that, we became rated.
Oh,
we
that's
took
where
out
you
our-
got your A+ rating.
I don't think we were A+, I think we were A3. God, time is a bad, it doesn't help your memory, but I think we were triple A.
That's what, okay. Oh, this is much nicer, okay, cool. I got this out of the presentation, you guys, that's where I got that one.
Well, the one is updated.
Oh, yeah, and this is much lower, it's 2 million lower, so that's nicer.
So when you
Oh, here's
see
the
it
percentage
reflected
on
like
here
this, you're seeing that these numbers are in the individual budgets. That's how we're
now. There we go,
That's how they
that's
divide
much
it out.
nicer.
they're designated out in each one of these worksheets.
I added the column for average coupon percentage.
That's good, thank you. Oh, yeah, you got the library edition in there too, that's through Nakusa Port Edwards, okay.
Well, so I mean, going back to the truck and funding the truck, you know, if this money that's in the I'll call it the savings account, is paying out roughly 3 or 4%, and if we borrowed it to pay for the truck, we're paying 4 to 5%, it doesn't make a lot of sense to borrow it not for this particular purpose. And I think for the purposes of our budget discussions coming up here over the next month, like Supervisor Jamadi mentioned, you know, we talked about this, we want to put together more of a comprehensive capital plan going forward. Well, that's when those borrowing questions might come into play. Given that we have this money available to use for this and some other proposals that you have, I would be comfortable going that route and see where the numbers lead us at the end.
I agree.
I'm not, sorry, I missed the first sentence, I guess.
He's-
Well, just,
he's on
I'm
jet
comfortable,
lag.
I'm comfortable using the proposal of using the MFL money to offset a portion of the truck purchase. Seems to me to be a better use of our overall dollars, because we're gonna make less money on the savings account than we would pay out if we borrowed the same amount of money right now today to buy that truck.
At current interest rates, yeah.
Like, yeah,
Now, 6 months from now, that could be a different conversation.
Yeah.
Probably won't be, but it could be. we could be optimistic.
I don't know, you dangle 200,000 in front of me, I'd rather put it into roads and borrow for the truck, but that's my personal.
Yeah, but then we can also borrow for roads.
But see,
No,
we
you
haven't,
borrow for capital and you use your roads are an expense, so I wouldn't borrow for roads, but I would borrow for capital or use the cash for the truck.
well, see, I would borrow for roads too, but we haven't had a borrowing conversation. That's
Okay,
what I-
well, earmark that for later then. That-
Thank you, Dan. But we haven't had a borrowing conversation, so, and that's the question I've been asking for weeks, so, thank you, Dan. But,
Well, it probably makes sense when you pay off the loan in 2024, given the items that you've heard from department heads. And if you put some roads into that you would, that was 1.9 million. If you would put together all the items that would be encompassed in that 1.9 million when you pay off a loan. I mean, otherwise you're gonna spike and drop, right? We work with Ellers on our investment strategy so we don't spike and drop in our levy. Cause when you do your levy worksheet, you are taking off, your debt service gets taken off of your restrictions, and then the payment for the next year is added on. So if you're gonna increase or decrease that dramatically from year to year, you're gonna spike and drop your mill rate.
see, and you've maybe had a conversation with Ellers that we have not been privileged to, so, and I'll show you these pictures here. I'd be happy to pass them around, which I took to a fall workshop, and I'll share that with everybody. And we spoke with a gentleman that's from the UW that's very experienced in roads, and these are on our Pacer rating, and he said exactly what this problem is. And we drive on them around town every day, and I take these pictures, and I asked him, what is this problem? And he taught the course. These are rated a 4, and it concerns me. Till 2024, we let these go another 2 years? I mean, and we haven't talked seriously about borrowing, so I would not normally wanna spend cash like that. When we had MFL money before, Dan knows, we sat here, put that cash money in our roads. It was over $500,000. I mean, so I appreciate what you're saying, but we have not been privileged to anything from Ellers, and I'm just saying, normally I would not say, let's put it in a truck. I'd say, let's borrow for something. I don't borrow for my trucks or cars or my home like Supervisor Minter said at our last meeting. So I'd like to have that conversation later, so. I mean, we haven't made a motion yet to do that, but it is a starting point for a conversation for borrowing, so anyway.
I think it just becomes an agenda item for a post-budget
Well,
town meeting.
One of the things that concerns me on the highway budget itself, though, is we've got a 7% increase in expenses, correct? But we've got a 6% increase in the equipment outlay. But we got a -5 on maintenance and a -2 on road material. Those are the two that we all agreed that was our top priority, was roads.
So,
Exactly.
road material is an easy one. We have just not used as much salt. We haven't had as harsh a winters. The way that our salt works is that we go through the state program. We have to commit to an amount of salt before winter happens. We've been having excess salt. So we put more money into that mastic,
Yes.
and we are gonna buy a semi-load of mastic, but we just don't need as much salt. That's why the coffin blocks are back there, because they're holding salt that we just haven't been able to use through a winter.
Right, but we got the mastic, and we actually ran out this year, when we only increased it by $5,000.
We didn't buy a semi-load though.
You had
We
30,000 in the budget, we didn't spend that?
No, we spent it.
Not on mastic though. Remember, we had to use some of that to offset the road costs, we didn't, that's way back.
Cause we came in over budget.
So how much mastic did we actually use? That we ran out, right? About what, early in the
We
year?
went about 12 pallets.
And how many
That doesn't
pallets
tell
would
me anything. How much
be
did
on
we
a
spend?
semi?
How much will be in a semi?
Yeah.
We do like 24 pallets on a semi.
So double.
20,
So we're planning.
wait, right? Anyway,
Okay.
what's the cost? I don't care about the pallets. How much did you spend?
If I load of mastic's gonna be 35,000 roughly.
Okay.
He said he can't guarantee a price, cause the oil right now is,
Not,
Crazy.
okay, but we're 35,000, but how much did we spend this year on mastic?
this year, I think in the neighborhood of 15 to maybe 17,000.
How much could you have? I mean, so we used some of that cost on other things?
Yes, cause our roads came over when our,
Yeah.
So
But see, it doesn't have
That-
anything actual. Sorry, Dan, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry, Dan.
that aside, so looking at next year, let's say it was projected as 466 year end for highway road maintenance. Next year, 200,000 of that budgeted is our share of the Apache project, right? Or am I misinterpreting that line?
Yes.
Okay. Which means, great that we're doing Apache, but we'll be effectively spending half as much as
Yes.
getting other roads done. That's where I'm
Right.
concerned here.
I agree.
Agree.
And a piece of that we've talked about is the state has, if there is any extra cost to Apache, if something occurs, that comes back to us. The state won't give us additional grant dollars.
Right.
So I think our grant total, there was like $574,000 that we're getting from the state for that road. It's around 500,000. But we estimate it's $200,000, but if there is an additional $25,000 to that project, that's of our cost. The state won't increase. So that's why we also kept that number low, because we wanted to make sure that we would have funds to cover that expense if something occurred on that project. Now, we still have some leftover ARPA funds, like we could potentially utilize some ARPA funds, because you'd have until the end of 2024 to make those commitment of those funds. And then also remember, you did an additional, how many roads in chip seal this year?
13.8 miles?
In that, out of the ARPA, so those were slated for 2023, but you did them this year, so you're seeing 3 miles of road projects for next year, but you did a whole bunch of additional road projects that would have happened next year, this year.
So the ARPA funds, you're talking about the 144,000 plus we got in June.
Yeah, with 288 we got total, but we've committed a series of that, right? We've spent or committed a series of those funds.
So do we know how much we have left? Have we reviewed that yet, or will we get a review of that?
You will see that, but I can tell you, cause I just did those numbers.
Because according to the DOR, it looked like a total of 144, so we got two.
No, you got 2 payments, you got it in 2 payments.
Two different years.
Yeah, you got the first in 2021, and you got the second half in 2022. So you got a total of 288,047.
So that was the second payment in June of 144,
Yes.
okay.
Correct. Yep.
I think we'll be talking about roads until the 11th hour in this whole budget process, but can we maybe, I'll just suggest we shift gears and talk about this additional position. I'd like
Yeah.
to understand
Yeah, what the
more about the need.
justification.
Yeah.
Spending less money.
What did you say? I didn't hear that.
I said we're spending less money, with more people.
So I would have Brad join us also up at the podium. We did include the position description in the packet. Some items that I kind of would start with the reiteration would be, one, we do rely heavily with part-time individuals within the highway department. It's very difficult to find part-time individuals, especially in our economic market, right? They can find full-time employment, they can find full-time employment with benefits. So it's difficult to find that additional part-time labor force. Also, just with the piece with the mastic machine and the training that would be required, it's nice to have a full-time person, that you have someone that is going to be there through all of the seasons, not just mastic, but snow plowing, and would have that regular rotation or training. Not that we would be having someone come in part-time and they're here for a piece of time and then they have another employment and then they come back. Maybe they're here 1 year in the winter, which we've had, and then the next year they're in the spring, but they hadn't gone through a whole season because they're splitting that time. And then just workload, right? If you think about the amount of growth that we've had and the expectations that have come forth from residents with that growth, it's a higher expectation.
One question is, we go from 66,000 on part-time budget from 2022 to 56,000 part-time for 2023. So a 10% or $10,000 reduction in part-time wages, yet we have 48, 50, 60-some thousand increase in full-time.
Cause that's a whole nother, we always budget family insurance for when we have a potential, new employee coming in.
Understood, but I'm looking at only a $10,000 reduction in part-time. That's not much. So you're gonna have, you're adding a full-timer, but you're not really cutting that much in part-time. 15%.
We're cutting one employee,
That's only 15%? How many hours are they working?
maxed out at 1,200 hours.
How many people?
It varies.
Rough idea. 5, 10, 15, 20?
In the public works alone,
Yeah.
3 to 6.
And
And
the
the-
part-timers are used when?
All year round.
Especially
They're,
snow plowing?
they're used all year round for mowing, for snow plowing. Now with this mastic, needing 4 people to run that, we're gonna need an extra person. Keep in mind that also this part-time people, even though they have some hours at Public Works, also are down at Syracuse, which that puts them on a separate budget. They also are mowing for the parks, which puts them on a separate budget. We mow dog parks, cemeteries. We have 2 people that basically spend 3 days a week, cause they're maxed at the 1,200 hours, nothing but mowing, and when they're done, they go back and mow again. That
The
ties up a
roadsides.
lot of our part-time staff, is just simply mowing all of our parks, cemeteries, facilities.
Road right away.
I'd like to know then, how is it that we're able to loan people out and hire them out to other municipalities, our part-time people?
We did that just for one time for a week and a half, 2 weeks.
Okay, and my other question would be, do you think if we would pay them more? I mean, I do know that in our community, we do have retirees that are healthy, vibrant people that work part-time jobs. I'm just asking the question, part-time people, if we would pay them more, they enjoy that work. They're vibrant people, they're vital people. I mean, they're looking for those jobs in the summertime and they go away in the winter. And there's so much work in the summertime that can keep them busy, and like Carl says, it's really only, I saw that too, a savings of $10,000. And I look at the benefits package and we see those costs rising for us. Maybe we should just give you an opportunity to explain more, and, because this is the first time we're hearing any justification for it. But as I did read through the job description too, winters are always just so unpredictable. In the last 3-4 winters, we haven't really seen a lot of snow. Watch, this'll be the winter we get bombarded with snow. But it's in the summertime, it's the dead brush, it's the lawn mowing, it's Syracuse, it's all those things that would really keep people busy in the summertime. It's those 6 months from like April till October that we really just need the people working.
When you keep in mind with the snow plowing, it takes 8 people to plow when we go out, 8 to 10 hours. And our full-time staff is 3 people plus myself. That's 4 other positions we need to find. And I know everyone thinks it's easy to find people right now. We've had a job posting out there now for probably 2.5 to 3 months. We have not found a viable person yet.
Is it the wages?
What's the average hourly wage? Part-time.
1787 with the CDL,
It's
and then $2 bump. for
you get a
plow.
$2 bump when you snow plow, so it's 19, and with the 4%, it's almost 18 and 20.
So
I
many
like to
folks in
think-
the water department have a CDL?
There is 2 in the water department that have a CDL. We've had this conversation, their rate of pay is higher than that, and so if they'd have to make their rate of pay if they went out and plowed.
Yeah.
But we've had this conversation. The other piece is, they do have full-time jobs in the water utility. So you're gonna ask them to work a full-time job and then plow all night and go back to their full-time job.
Their work does decrease in the winter substantially.
But it's still, I mean, they are still there 8 hours, right? They're still compensated for full-time employment and are there full-time. So I'm not saying that it's not an option.
We've done it in the past,
Yes,
is what I'm saying.
yeah, the same is true of the police department. Chiefs plowed.
We used to
there's
have
another
board,
one.
we used to have board members plow.
Like we have, but that
I don't have a CDL, forget it.
doesn't
No.
necessarily.
You got one, so you
Yeah,
don't need
but
them.
on the new,
Okay, call me
on
up.
the new snowplow, you don't need a CDL.
That's
I'll give it a shot.
It's also not,
I'm just saying, it's not
Giving it a shot has cost us a lot of money in mailboxes.
You don't pay for those mailboxes. Nobody paid for mine.
It's not like, oh, I'll just, we always appreciate a willing heart, but snow plowing is an art and a
but,
science.
okay, but
And you
you,
most likely do it in the dark.
I like,
hire somebody for a full-time job that you need sporadically in the winter, I'm talking, you know, that's a person that's available. There's two guys you said already. I know there's another one that could be a CDL, but, like you said, you got two trucks, you don't even need a CDL.
I'm sorry, but I do need to say to you as well, though. I got, the wages at the county are a good example. And you were asked to get comparables, and I even offered to assist, and you did get us some information, and we have those. But pay, I believe, is part of our reason why we're not getting responses.
I don't think there's people out there
I'm sorry, there are.
that
One
want
guy-
to work.
Flying down at the county.
I got a factory with 23 open positions. There ain't people.
For part-time work, you would find people in this county.
we've had that for 2.5 months, we have not received someone yet with, that want, the people that apply, and you call them, tell them $1987 an hour, you know what they tell you?
Yeah.
Well,
And it being
here,
part-time,
twenty-three
they're
ninety-seven,
able to get
20
full-time with benefits. That's
Okay.
the other piece that's hard.
Yeah, right, it is, it's an employee market right now. It's been that way.
And
It's unbelievable.
I understand some of that, but
who would wanna come plow snow for $19.87 an hour, knowing that you have to go out with the truck, and you are putting your life and other people's lives at risk every time you go out and plow snow? Hitting someone, a vehicle, mailboxes, anything, at 4 in the morning, when you can make more if, say, you plowed for parking lots.
But again, we're not talking just snow plowing, we're talking about cutting grass, we're talking about,
But I'm talking for a part-time employee,
right, but we're
that must
talking
my
about,
justification for a full-time employee, we can't find someone that, to do it at part-time wages.
What's the rate on this full-time person you're looking at?
20. Hold on.
You know, again, the help situation, the restaurants can't even be open all the hours they wanna be.
Do you think it's likely that if you had the full-time position, because I know then you're gonna reduce one of the part-timers, do you think one of your current part-timers is likely to want to step forward and become that full-time person?
It's always possible.
Always possible.
Yeah.
That'd be the ideal situation, probably.
Yeah.
with the county.
2693.
Would the county pick up our routes in the wintertime?
Hire it all, the snow plowing out? Have
Some of
someone else?
them, some of the routes?
I'm sure that, or ask them, yeah.
I don't know what they would charge per hour because it would be,
And I don't know too what their response time is gonna be. Highway's easy, but much more important to them than our roads.
All right, well, Carl just asked you the question, if we have a part-time worker, you have them do it in the wintertime for 26? I'm just saying, you can't find people, but we got part-time people in the summertime. Pay them something between what they're making now and 26, you think they'd plow our roads? I think they might. I'm just saying, versus hiring a full-time person just because of snow plowing? I don't know. There's other areas we need money, like roads. There's a lot more work around here in the summertime that's not, I mean, that you need help with.
Also, I guess I wanna say with that part-time staff, with the ones we have, since they are on these limited hours, it is making scheduling very difficult, cause okay, this guy can only work Monday, Tuesday, this guy can work Wednesday, Thursday, cause of their hours, and with the retired staff and they really got no loyalty. they can come along and say, hey, I'm done tomorrow, I don't wanna do this anymore.
Rock and a hard place.
I guess like Jamie said, brought up a very good point. Do we wanna meet the demands of what the citizens are asking for?
Yes. Okay, can you go over again, what's this full-timer gonna do year-round?
Same as other full-times, during the summer,
I mean, mastic machine, we're still using, you're looking at one truckload of material?
one semi-load, yes. But there's also still mowing for that full-time person to do, patching. We didn't do any shoulder repair at all this year. I've got 2 cul-de-sacs that need to be dug out because of drainage problems that we didn't get to this year because we're short-staffed.
Do you have money in the budget for all of those projects, for material?
Yes, yeah.
Buildings and grounds for all our series of buildings and grounds.
And we do need that truck, right, for sure? I think we didn't even, we already covered that, right? Are you getting rid of a truck? You are?
Yes.
What was, is there any residual?
But we don't
value
have
on
it in there now because by the time we get this truck, really that truck isn't gonna come out until the 2024 budget.
Are we talking the snowplow truck?
Yeah, just, what's the one they're getting rid of gonna, is there any value to it?
Maybe
Yeah,
15,000.
but we likely wouldn't see it till 2024 because
Gotcha.
that new truck would arrive so late in 2023.
Yep.
We can't get rid of the old one until we get the new one,
Yeah.
or we're short a truck.
Right.
Where were you guys coming up with a savings of $10,000?
Look at your labor rate, your labor expense. Highway part-time labor, 66,000.
Oh, okay, I was looking at projected year end, so we haven't used as many labor hours as, but if it snows in December, that could drastically change in a heartbeat, yeah.
I'd rather come in under budget than be
Yep.
over on the part-time.
But again, to Dan's point, we're, aside from Apache, we're not covering as many roads as we should be. That was our priority.
But we did extra roads this year.
But still, we got a long way to go.
Okay, but the only
Not
way
where
to
we
do
should
it is to, what is it, $1 million a mile to pave a road?
225.
Yeah,
Oh,
225.
okay, good. Our roads are cheaper than other roads I've been hearing on the radio. City of Los is paid $1 million a road. So,
Might be concrete.
the only way to do more roads is to borrow money to do them.
You-
And
So
take
obviously
full
you've
advantage of the
budgeted-
grant opportunities that we did and do have available.
You've budgeted X amount of hours for part-time labor, yeah?
Yeah.
So you're keeping that relatively flat,
Amount of hours?
yeah. I mean, $10,000 isn't,
I think you had a
Much.
decrease in hours, didn't you, Jamie?
I did, there was a slight decrease, but yes. And we've done an average of 500 hours for snow plowing, which sometimes is under, and in more cases than not, it's been under for that 500 hours than over in the last several years.
so we're likely to have a bit of a pickup there in the scheme of things. But leaving it budgeted conservatively is probably
You
the
gotta be
right thing to do.
Yeah, you gotta be conservative, agreed. Any other allocated funds? We don't know again what's left in ARPA.
Oh, I pulled that number up. I don't know if I said it out loud because of our other conversation. So, once you get the rebate from We Energies, you'd have about $67,000 that you could still allocate for ARPA.
And that would be, I mean, roads was the big one on that one, our considerations.
Quarter mile of road.
Is the LRIP-S part of that, bill money, or is that separate?
Part of it.
So you can still apply for that portion of it, can you not? the LRIP-S
Yes, but that's,
next year?
yes, not this year.
But you can't factor anything like that into a budget.
No, I know. Just as long as we apply for it.
There's a trip program too that'll come up next year, but
No.
I don't plan on any guarantees, you know.
Any other unallocated funds?
What was that?
Any other unallocated funds?
Well, besides your ARPA, if you wanted to, you would have some MFL, some additional MFL, if you wanted to put some additional MFL. It's not going to be a mile of paved road, right? But
Every little bit helps.
Yep.
so, thoughts, feelings, decisions?
Perfectly honest, no to everything. I'm just back to no to everything. Health insurance, wages, and roads.
But if he doesn't have the right number of employees, it doesn't matter how much money we spend on the roads, because if we can't plow them or we can't mow their grass, you gotta have the people to maintain the,
He's
To
got
maintain the
loyal
road.
employees.
I don't know how loyal employees are anymore. Not if they're not signed to a contract that has penalties.
This is just out from left field to say, but if you take the full-time employee with all the benefits you're looking at, but if you apply those benefits to a part-time wage, to Lori's point, you could actually increase the wage substantially using the health benefits you would have normally pay a full-timer to part-time wages. I'm just throwing it
Increase
out
our
there.
part-time wage. That
Well, I
wouldn't
look at the
affect
fact
all
that-
budgets.
So I had to use,
Yeah, it's, wouldn't, that number just wouldn't be in highway, because when those individuals work in other departments, they wouldn't get a decrease in wage. So if you went to Derek Hughes, you would still make that wage.
If they're, okay,
you-
I got you. If they're
If you
full-time,
mowed the
yes.
cemetery, you'd still make that wage. If you worked in Rome Town Center, you'd still make that wage.
the advantage to working at Derek Hughes is it's covered by grant money
Half.
portion, yep.
Yeah, but there's still wages, there's still, hours still apply though. So if they're 20 hours with us, 20 hours with them, we'd probably still get hit with the benefits, right? If they're being reimbursed, so they're still a full-time employee, basically.
Well, for the part-time, it would be the 1,200 hours. So even if you,
I'm just saying if they're part-time here and part-time there, but overall that makes them full-time.
oh, yes, then
We're
they're
still
still
hit
full-time.
with the benefits,
Yes.
yeah.
The
regardless
town of
whether-
Rome is still the employer, regardless.
Yes.
Yeah, that 1,200 is spread across all, no matter
How
which
many of those,
department.
how many part-time do you have are just pure part-time?
In just public works?
Yes.
Also including solid waste,
No,
Syracuse? Just public works.
public works.
This past summer, we had 4. And then 1 seasonal, summer help, high schooler.
So what are we stuck on?
I move that we remove the full-time position from the Public Works budget.
But otherwise, accept as proposed?
I haven't gone that far yet.
Okay.
I don't know well, we're not in discussion. Is there a second? Okay, no second. We might, if we increase the budget on roads, we might need that other person. The mastic machine takes how many people?
4.
4?
4.
They were running.
How many
it.
hours did you use it this year?
Maybe 80,
80? 80?
maybe 2 weeks.
But they're buying twice as much mastic next year, so that hopefully they'll be using it for 4 weeks.
So that'd be 160 hours.
Yeah.
So 4 people for 160 hours.
How many roads could you do with mastic for next year? We'll say if you had, how many need it? How many need it
I
right
can't
now?
even give you a number, because it
Higher
depends
than
on-
it is now? Higher than what you got planned for 2023? How many miles are you looking at doing in 2023 in mastic?
I got 4 roads picked out, probably of maybe 2 miles, but if the material goes farther, we go, we do more. If it does go less, we do less. It's so
Rough
tough to
idea,
do-
just a rough idea. How many miles do you think could use mastic right now?
in the town.
Yes.
Oh, jeez.
A lot more than 4.
Oh, yeah.
So we know we need it, but we don't know if we can get it.
We can get it, they don't know what the price is gonna be.
Exactly, so we don't even know if we can afford it. We don't even know if we can,
We have to
we
afford
don't
it.
even have a plan for it.
But we've got planned, we've got budget $35,000, and we got roads we wanna do with it.
Right, but
I'm just wondering if we raise the budget up on the mastic.
Well, the other piece, now this goes back to the ARPA conversation, if you
Mm-hmm.
budget the 35 and you end up needing 37 or 40, then you could take it out of you could commit it out of the ARPA funds. Let's say Brad calls and they say, it's a really good price right now, do you want more than a semi-load, and we get a semi-load and a half, you could take that difference out of the ARPA funds. You still need the people in order to put the mastic down, but you could take that difference if it does end up coming in more expensive, or you wanna buy additional. Brad's very fortunate, he has good connections with the other highway departments, they put the mastic on their loads, and that saved us the freight of getting it here, because they were already going to those highway departments. So if Adams County or Wood County orders additional mastic, maybe we put additional on their truck after the semi-load comes here if we use it up.
can I just ask a question? What is mastic made of?
Oil and rock. These are the easiest terms of putting it.
Thank you.
Dan, thoughts?
I don't know. I know this was already discussed earlier. How much did we buy this year? It was less than a semi-load, yeah?
Yes.
Like half?
Yep, we bought about 10 to 12 pallets. I think it was 12.
So that's a fraction of what we'd be getting this year.
Yeah, we'll be getting basically double it.
Those are 55 gallon.
No, they're like in a 40-gallon block. They come on pallets.
I was trying to put into perspective the amount of hours spent doing that this year versus what could potentially happen next year. And if it was only gonna be 120 hours, you need an extra set of hands, then
Right.
that wasn't making sense to me, but
That's just looking to boost it up even more, get some more roads done.
Yeah.
I
But
mean,
if you wanna look at the road numbers, I don't include those mileage into the, if you wanna throw those numbers in there, you're going from 3 miles, and if you can figure we're gonna roughly do 2 miles of mastic, then you get 5 miles of road repair. Of some sort.
of some sort, yeah.
do you have the capability of doing, say, a semi and a half or even 2 semis of mastic next year?
With another person, you bet.
Of course.
Cause you're talking about probably 2 months worth of work then.
Yeah.
But during those 2 months, patching won't get done. Some mowing will get done with the part-time staff. That'll be our main focus for 2 months.
You still have to do patching.
Well, if that's truly the constraint, then I'm leaning towards there's a justification for having a full-time person available. But I would hope that we would get some savings out of the part-time by way of you being able to schedule your manpower more easily, I guess.
Yes.
What work are you able to do outside of the office?
Anything, what would you like? I
I'm
can do
asking
anything.
you the question.
I've run skid steer this week, grading, out at Syracuse. I've plowed snow, I've run the end loader out at the transfer site. I've helped the guys put mastic down, I've mowed. I've done everything they've done.
That's all I was asking.
I'll make a motion that we, as far as the highway budget is concerned, that we include the full-time position as it was presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? And this is just for the employee. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion's carried.
Are we good with the overall rest of the pieces of the highway budget, or
I'm
do we?
not.
Okay.
I'm
No,
not.
we're gonna be coming back here.
Yeah.
But as far as that position
He's
goes.
gonna have some work to do.
Is it really just that piece related to the road maintenance?
For me, it's just road maintenance.
It's just
yes.
road maintenance. I mean, we're not concerned with the utilities or the fuel or the operations costs.
Fuel,
We're really just
he-
looking at road maintenance.
Somebody had $4 for diesel, or, yeah, you got $4 for unleaded and 5 for diesel.
I would
I
just,
don't know.
I would really just like to have an additional comment if I could, please, because just because we have this 7% next year, we don't know what our net new growth will be the following year or the next year. And we're still short this year. We haven't gotten to our other budgets this year yet. And things might look good now, but this economy is, we don't know what's coming. And I just wish we really would have waited and put some more faith in what we've got now and maybe tried a little bit harder for some part-time employees and increased their wages. Thank you. And please put that on the record, Madam Clerk.
So we do, for fuel, remember, because we're part of that cooperative through the state,
What are we paying right now?
I think those are fairly decent averages that we took off of what we've paid this year with our discount. On an overall average for the year. Sometimes it's a little better, but we get a percentage discount.
Who knows where it's gonna go, yeah. All right.
But, so if the concern is really just that road maintenance, again, if you wanted to do some MFL, or if you wanted to do some commitment through ARPA, those are options.
Right. We'll come back. I'd feel comfortable coming back to that.
Okay.
So we good on,
Yep, we're
roads for
good on-
now?
We're good on highway for a while.
That wasn't so bad.
I included cemetery back again on this meeting. Last meeting, we had discussed about that there isn't any change from the budget that you saw previous to the budget that was in your packet. But I did include it back on the agenda, cause I think Supervisor Jamadi had some additional information regarding some other landscaping.
I'll just give you the information I have. I will make a comment. I'll just go to that page if I can find it here quick. I'd put it back in my book. If I can find it. I noticed you had given a quote for 11,000 for a fence. You and I had discussed it or talked about it just briefly in your office. You had put, let me just see if I can find the page. I don't think I can find it now. I thought I had separated it out. You'd given a quote on a fence that's only 4 feet high. I think rather than trying to, you had only budgeted 5,000
Yep, there's 5,000 in there.
and the fence came out at 11,800. I'd say save the money. Put it in the roads or somewhere else, don't bother. I got some information here I can give you, cause I thought, you know, we'd have a serious conversation and 4 feet. Be lucky if the dogs don't jump it. Let's wait till we can, really talk about some serious money. And you budgeted 2 years down the road to put a fence around New Rome. When that's already got a fence, I think it'll last a few years longer. So, giving a quote for $11,000, 800, I think. I can't find the paperwork right now.
It was 11.8, but we could still, for that 5 that was in there, unless you want it, the board wanted it decreased, we could still explore some landscaping options.
Yeah, and I've got some paperwork here, if I could find it, from Twin Creeks Nursery. They have some junipers that are deer resistant that they can get burlap wrapped that might fit within the 5,000 that you budgeted, even though the fence was 11,000. So, maybe those might fit in somewhere, but I think something that'll have to be seriously considered, depending on how many people die within the next couple of years. Without property tax, there's no way to maintain a cemetery. So,
So we would keep the 5. I know we were also having conversations with Lake Arrowhead because they grow pines to a higher, and they have the spade, so we could get a larger size pine, plant it right away.
right,
And they do the tree sale in the spring, that might also be it. So maybe what we would do is cross-reference notes, but it wouldn't be more than the $5,000 expenditure next year to add some landscaping pieces.
yeah, and the tree sale, some of those trees aren't very big, so I don't know how much that'll, really keep that gentleman from using that as a personal driveway, but, I was hoping that we could have a little bit more serious conversation than that, but whatever, works. So, but I think we'll have to, in the future, think about putting some money in that budget, property tax dollars, cause depending again on how many people actually die, I mean, there's no way to really keep that up. And it is ours, just like parks, those have to be maintained. So money needs to go in there to help maintain that. You've got veterans in there, people die and invest in there, so something has to be done.
Some people might fall out of their chairs when I ask this question, but can you privatize cemeteries?
The proper thing to do with that, no, if you privatize them, the unfortunate sad thing that happens with like a lot of them in large urban areas, private companies come in and then they actually fall into serious disrepair because companies around the US come in and then they say they're gonna maintain them and then unfortunately they fall into serious disrepair. What we should do is go into the next step and have a fund that's actually invested. The way they've got it set up now with the type of fund it's in is that the money can't really be touched and used. Like somebody can't come in and say, oh, we've got 19,000 there, we'll take it and put it over here. The money is taken care of. There's a perpetual fund that's charged, so when I go in and buy a lot for $500, they charge me like, let's say another $100 for perpetual care. So then that goes in there and that's how that money builds up for care and maintenance of that cemetery. But the next step is another type of fund, and I can't think of it right now. Maybe Amy knows the name of that next level. Then what happens is that money would be invested in a type of fund, but then what you're required to do is have a dedicated cemetery or a cemetery committee or a custodian committed to taking care of that fund, and a committee that is responsible for taking care of that cemetery to make sure that it's always maintained. Because come the day that I die, you die, then we know that somebody's gonna take care of that cemetery and our parents' graves. Like your father's buried there, my father's buried there, and so forth. So that somewhere down the line, 50 years from now, it doesn't fall into disrepair. So those are the steps for taking care of a cemetery. Otherwise, a firm from like Texas could come up and buy it and hopefully take care of it, but then we wouldn't ever, the town wouldn't have a say, you wouldn't have a say, I wouldn't have a say.
The other piece that we can, I had just sent this out to department heads, that every year in November, December, we look at the fees for all things that we charge fees for. Our cemetery lot purchase price is fairly reasonable, especially if you're a town resident, and maybe it's just time that we look at those fees.
Well, and not only, maybe an impact fee, maybe the impact fee shouldn't just be going to parks, or again, maybe some of our property taxes go into maintaining that like they do to the parks. It is ours, we do own it, so let's pay to take care of it.
So then, cemetery budget, I'll check that one off the list, is good.
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to Rome Town Center, this one's returning from the last meeting for a couple items. We talked about the sign maintenance for the large sign that's off of Timberline. We talked about painting and doing some repairs for the gazebo. Thank you. And we talked about the painting of the light poles. 2 of those 3 items are reflected in here. That would be the Rome Town Center sign maintenance and the painting and repairs to the gazebo. We need to do some more research on painting those poles and companies that can paint those poles. We don't really have a good number for that, but we could work on that through this next year to see what those potential options would be. But this budget would include those 2 items to get taken care of next year. The RTC sign I would just mention then Brad's also applied for a grant with Visit Rome. Signage is one of the things that you can apply for a grant. It's a half the cost. Don't know that we would receive half, but we could ask Visit Rome to help offset the cost. That's not reflected in this budget, but it would reduce that amount if we were able to receive it.
One thing I was gonna suggest to you and Brad both is that at the Rome Town Center, I noticed that around the main square, like around where the gazebo is and, Geneva Trail, Timberline and that, the light posts are actually different, where on the rest of the roads, they look more industrial. So maybe if you divide them, that might help with the costs. Look at the ones that are in the main area where the people will be drawn to once the band shell's built. Maybe do that first, and then look at the ones that are on the back roads, do those secondary. Just an idea.
Yeah, to divide it. That's a good
Yeah.
idea. But then those are the only two things that reflect changes from the last time you saw this budget. We feel good about that the sign maintenance cost. The painting of the gazebo, we did have to take our best estimate at this point. We've contacted several contractors and some will come out to look at it, but they just don't have time at this moment. But they did feel they could get the work done next year. But if we were comfortable with Rome Town Center with those two items added, then this budget would also be done.
Anybody, questions on this? I think we're good.
Okay. Buildings and grounds, the only change from our last meeting was the health insurance number had to be reflected differently. Now that you've made that health insurance decision, that number in there is accurate. It changed ever so slightly, the amount of levy, but again, the amount of levy in buildings and grounds is up because of the capital outlay projects. This is where I would propose another possible suggestion. In the capital outlay, that parking lot for Station 2, we are estimating $50,000. So that's a total replacement, a total take out and replace that pavement, that blacktop, because it's very beat up in that parking lot.
I've been over there twice. It is rough, but how much does that really get used as compared to a road? Do you rate that the same as you would a road? If you would, have you seen it? What would you rate it at?
I don't know that you could rate it the same
Well,
as a road,
it's
but
comparable to some of the roads. I mean,
3 to 4.
I'm just trying to think of priority.
Well, my fault for not making it over there since our last meeting, but I mean, are there major cracks are there heaves that people are going to trip on? If there's not, then I'd say hold off on this.
Yeah.
Well, my potential proposal would be, so fire, besides their 2% dues and their capital, does cancel back out to general. So if they have savings, it cancels back out to general. If you wanted to divide some of this capital outlay cost between general and building and grounds, the general budget could absorb some of it, which would drop down your amount of levy needed, because that's where, if there are excesses in budgets, it would go back to general in those cases. So potentially we could reduce that number and put a percentage of it in buildings and grounds, but a percentage of it would come out of general.
Yeah, I mean, it
I'm not sure
needs
where
work,
I think
but
she's
it's
down here.
not dire, I think, like we would
At the
look at
very, very
roads,
bottom of
in my
the
opinion.
expenses.
How does it
For
compare
buildings
to
and
the
grounds.
condition our parking lot was in here previously?
But it doesn't get used much. I mean,
Well, right, I know,
how often does it get used, Mark?
during practices and
Yeah.
fire calls.
She said fine.
That is our primary helicopter spot also.
I thought this is.
Yeah, but you can land a helicopter on,
You
Dirt.
always landed
Yeah.
here. I thought that was your new thing, to land it here.
No, we don't always land it here. We
There's a little loose gravel by the building, but other than that, it's there.
I thought
Some
we
weeds,
changed it
but-
over there and I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Carl.
I'm done.
No, it's I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
if we didn't do, so I think there's also some facade that needs to be repaired on that building. It's just getting older. If there was the thought process that maybe we didn't wanna do the parking lot. I do think that you could decrease that number, but still make some investment just to maybe get that building painted, and that the rock that's on the front is not true rock, right? But to get that replaced so that building would match this building and would have some, would just have that building maintenance taken care of.
Is that in here already or no?
It is not, cause we started with the parking lot area.
I thought the last couple of times the helicopter landed, it landed here. Now, there was a change. Yes, things have changed. Years ago, that it was safer to land it over at Station 2, but now it changed that it lands here. Could someone explain that to me, please?
Chief, do you wanna take that question? I would believe the answer kinda depends on what the emergency is and where it's located in town, but
You're exactly right.
we'll just adjust that a little more.
You have seen the helicopter land here. The last time the helicopter landed here, the incident actually happened in this building. It would make
Okay.
no sense for us to drive across town to land a helicopter. In times of high traffic, our busy weekends, during our busy weekends, high traffic times, it is much safer for us to land at Station 2. Because it causes a spectacle out here. We've had near collisions. We've had people get out of their cars, start walking across the grass to come see what's happening, so it's a lot harder for us to control the scene out here in the high traffic zone
Makes
versus what we
sense.
have over there.
That's what I understood. Okay, thank you.
So then having a nice flat new parking lot makes a lot of sense if we're landing a helicopter on it, sort of.
2 or 3 times a year? How often?
I couldn't. even
Hopefully
put an-
less.
I couldn't put an average to how many times.
I'm pretty sure it's not that bad that a helicopter can't land on it.
Yeah, no, I've seen worse.
Out of curiosity, what is the general condition of that building at this point? How's the roof? Is it-
Roof's dry. It's intact. We have no internal leaks. It's cosmetic to the front. Is where the facade is starting to delaminate and the culture stone falling off the building.
Hey, Mark, you got 5,500 here also for HVAC yearly cleaning. Is there something else it's
That's a Brad.
Brad? Oh, okay, Brad. Substantially higher than past.
There was a project for here, wasn't there?
The 9,000 is a zone project for this building.
No, this is
The
5,500.
55 for the HVC, that cleaning, I think that's because we went with a different entity that has better suited our needs. We were with a less expensive entity, but it just wasn't keeping the maintenance that we needed to have done on these buildings. Is that a fair act?
So it's more than just the HVAC?
It's heating, cooling, cleaning, yes, so I wouldn't say that it's more, but it is better service than we were receiving before. Service that more matches our needs for our buildings.
Okay. Folks, thoughts?
I'm hearing we're not crazy about the parking lot, but the facade pieces, maybe we would be.
Get a price.
Yeah, do we have a price, or we need to get that?
I don't have a price on it. We can do some temporary, just put a couple stones back on for probably $1,000.
Okay, well, let's find out what that is, just out of curiosity.
Okay.
Is that to do it to match the town hall? They're talking the facade?
Well, there's some stone there already that's falling off. Was the thought process that gets removed and replaced, or?
That's kind of what I'm asking, do you want me to price just put those stones back on so they stay, or to actually take everything off so it matches the facade of the town hall?
That sounds expensive.
That sounds expensive to me.
You tell me which way you want me to go, and I'll.
No,
Put them back, get some Elmer's
We-
glue and put them back.
If we
Now, if I had
repair and
said
paint,
that,
does it
everybody
not
would
look
have
like?
thrown daggers at me.
I would just repair at this point,
But do we want to consider painting it? That's all I'm asking.
yeah. Get a price.
Okay.
18 and
Well, why don't we have a price already with some cost of Elmer's glue and putting them back on?
Because
Just asking.
our proposal was the parking lot. If that's
Oh,
not an
okay.
amenable proposal, then, but, I mean, we still have the building, we still wanna take care of the building.
Well, of course.
Yeah. Okay, so
Okay.
we will
Yep.
adjust that number back. Okay.
Thank you.
Police is next.
Pretty much, except I get to write them all.
On your police budget, again, this does include that additional officer. There is included in your packet that job description. Chief is here to answer additional questions, but, that job description is, as you can see, is more for a community service, police liaison officer. So they would be handling some other duties, outside of just patrol. Just starting with the revenue side, you're gonna see a carryover in prior year revenue of that 11,850. The police department had received some donations, both through that seizure of funds and for a purchase of an ATV. That's the carry forward of those funds for next year. The increase in the property tax does reflect that other position. The other items, you're gonna see that $8,000 for the water patrol grant. That is a slight increase, but that's based on the hours that the water patrol would be out, and if you added an additional officer, they could be out some additional hours, plus we have the newer boat, so. Under expenses, you're gonna see the 4%, wage for the positions. Again, the union contract was for 3, but we said about the 4% for all employees, so that does reflect a 4% plus that additional staff member. Insurance is how we've discussed. The pieces for mileage and operations are fairly consistent from previous years. The uniform allowance does not reflect an increase of an officer, cause in the first year we purchased that equipment for new officers, but would reflect an increase in the future. And then the capital outlay, does go down a little bit, but it would reflect a purchase of an additional squad, provided we could get the squad, next year. We've had a lot of delay in delivery of vehicles, but we do expect that the truck that we ordered last year will come before the end of the year, and then next year we would be purchasing an additional squad. I would invite Chief up if you had some additional questions, or if you felt like I missed anything that you wanted to point out.
unless there's questions.
On the boat patrol that we receive grants from the DNR, is that 50%, or what was the rate on that?
There's a pool of money that's allotted, so all the claims go in, our patrol, every other city that's got a patrol, and then those funds are distributed. So I believe it has to be a minimum of a 70% return on our investment, but it depends how many claims are put in. So I believe it was around 75 last year, so 70 plus. I don't remember it ever being over like 79% since I've been doing it.
And can we talk just a little bit more about that new position, just because it would be slightly different? I know the one part that I find exciting, but I know others might, personal one, is with them helping with some of the community service piece, they can help with enforcement. That would be helping zoning department with enforcement, but also assisting with short-term rental enforcement. That's really become a much larger workload, and that staff position would be able to assist with those items. It makes it easier for ticketing too, like this year, that sounded bad, for when we have to issue citations. This year, so we had to take an officer that had to go with the enforcement intern. Like this would allow that to be a more seamless, because the officer would be assisting with those enforcement pieces and then could issue the ticket more immediately.
What's significantly different about this versus a regular officer?
It's just it's called the CSO, just basically internally, we have the job description, and when we get to the union contract portion of it, if this is approved, it's a designated spot, because the officers are gonna say, well, we don't want all 6 of us subject. Chief, I don't want you to tell me that have picked days that I'm gonna be moved to nights, so this designation of a position doesn't have the same schedule as the other people, so I can move that person to utilize them, such as in the summer, it can be on the boat patrol Friday, Saturday, Sunday, numerous weekends in a row, where the other full-timers, it says you'll work 2 days, be off 2 days, work 3, be off 2. It's just basically union language to be able to utilize it how we need to utilize it. And as Jamie covered, instead of having 6 different people know how to deal with the code enforcement issues over here, one person can be a professional at it, and the people that have questions deal with the same individual, versus they call one day shift officer and then they call back 2 days later to follow up on their call, and that officer's off and a different one is working because of their schedule, and you gotta keep one person in the loop versus several people in the loop. And the main reason for this position is the same as what was stated on Public Works. We've had part-time, the rundown of this police department, I was hired in 99. There was 5 full-timers and a full-time chief. In 2003, they went to 6 full-timers with a full-time chief, 7, which is our current staffing now, with the part-time that we have now for the boat. Back in 2003, we did 1,000 calls for service a year roughly. Now we're dealing with 1,600 calls, or 57% more, with the same amount of staffing. My people have to go to 720 hours of training to hold this job more than a year. Those people are non-existent that are part-time. We used to have sheriff's deputies that were interested in working numerous hours here, specifically 2 of them that almost worked full-time hours here, as well as their job down there. Those people just aren't available. You can see from the budget, I haven't used all of the part-time funds because there's no one to get to come in to use them. So that creates overtime for the staff we have now, or we just can't do the work. Obviously, the first things that go is the seasonal patrols. ATV hasn't been out as much as I would have liked to have seen it out, and the boat on some of the weeknights where there's problems, there's no one to man the boat to take it out.
It also, I noticed on there it said they had code responsibility. What kind of codes would they be enforcing?
We issue all the tickets for zoning, the short-term rentals. I believe last week they were sent 10 complaints over on short-term rentals
I think it was like 14,
Wow.
yeah.
So that's where I'm saying, so it gets issued to one officer on Monday. Well, that officer works Monday and Tuesday, so if they get other police work, then it sits there. On Wednesday and Thursday, it's a different officer working, so how do they pick up where? And it creates delays and problems with that enforcement flowing smoothly.
Especially when we were doing these brush and timber and short-term rentals, if it wasn't, the officer could pick up some of the licensing procedure for short-term rentals. So now I send to the officer, like, these individuals are out of compliance, here's their addresses, can you issue a citation? But the officer could have access to host compliance, and part of regular practice could be that they're always looking, so those things are even caught faster, because I'm fitting it in as I'm able, where this individual would be part of the regular work duties, that they would be more looking and instantaneously issuing it, and then could answer questions. Because when we issue a citation, oftentimes people say, why did I get this citation?
Especially those short-term rental, every one of them calls and has questions on what happened.
I got a question about the position. Do you think someone that goes to school then for a police officer, do you think someone would be interested enough in this position, you know, reading that job description? Do you think that they'd be interested enough in that versus real police work? I mean,
Well, it still is real police work. It's just the ability
Well-
to use the person on different hours. Because if I just say I'm gonna hire a seventh police officer, as soon as they get here, they're gonna say, well, the contract says I work 2 days, I'm off 2 days, work 3 days, 12-hour shifts. So we need to call it, and we're gonna do that. We used to have a part-timer,
you,
Deputy LeBrecq, when he was here, that
Right,
did all of the,
Joe.
like, community service type stuff and
Right.
cops and bobbers and those kinds of programs. So this gives us a position that we can have that does that, but there's still gonna be, when somebody takes vacation, that person's gonna have to work the road. So they're still doing
Oh.
police duties, but we need to call it something to classify it in the union contract. So what would you
Gotcha.
call it? You couldn't call it a detective. You could call it a code enforcement officer if you'd prefer to do that. We just chose the name CSO due to the community.
I was wondering
we're gonna
that,
have
you
them
know,
do.
because I have seen positions posted like that around the state, code enforcement officer / patrol officer too, if that's.
I just wanted a bright line distinction between it and your general patrol so that I don't get the statements that, hey, I'm
Right.
supposed to be working 12 hours or whatever else.
Gotcha.
Because as I said, in the summertime, this person will be working 3 weekends out of 4, and on the
Gotcha.
4th weekend, the part-time will fill in, and they're gonna be here on the holiday weekends when we need the
Well, I just wondered too,
patrol
if-
and.
right, and I just wondered too if there'd be a little bit more respect on the level of code enforcement officer too, if we called it that versus communities.
Yeah, but I think, if it's, if CSO, community service officer, that is what they are really, if they're doing all that other stuff, then I'm going to assume like if this person would be taking over a lot of that code enforcement, then that would mean that the current existing officers would be having less involvement
Less
with,
involvement.
with
Right.
that. So
Yeah.
this would fall on that one person rather than spread across 6, some of whom are here, and then they're gone for 3 days, and
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you call them, but just, yeah, that the person wouldn't lose interest either and that they're, they still get an opportunity to be a real police officer.
If the summers weren't involved, likely full-time staff that I currently have would put in for that, but because of the summer weekends, I'm guessing
Yeah.
that's a deterrent for some of the more senior level people to
Right.
put in for the position.
And DNR does offer funds on boating. Do they also offer any on ATVs and future snowmobile use? Not at all, huh?
They do, but counties are the only entity eligible.
It gets it.
We just get boat patrol,
For the
so our
trails.
claim would likely go up, as Jamie explained, because we can take this person and when they're on the boat with a part-timer, so that would be the plan, is the full-time officer would be position 1 on the boat. Position 2 would be one of the seasonal workers like we've had, so the full-timer can train them and get them up to speed, but when we put our claim in, our claim will include full-time wages, benefits, so the claim goes up. So some of that full-time money would be offset by the grant in a return. How you would estimate that, it depends. I mean, obviously, if it's pouring rain on a Saturday, we can't send the boat out. That happened a lot this year, that we got rain on the weekends and the boat didn't go out for as long as it would have on good weather.
It's really nice too to have a full-timer out on the boat, just because we have been fortunate on finding part-time people, but if you're new to being a police officer, if you're at school for being a police officer, some of those conversations are confrontational and some of those meetings are, difficult, and it's nice to have someone that's doing that on a more regular basis and to learn from.
You're a little more confident with their
Yes.
educational
Well, and with the push to increase enforcement of existing ordinances, you need to have somebody who's fully trained and knowledgeable out there.
Yeah.
You can't-
Yeah, absolutely. This year is not gonna happen again. Next year, it was liability for, I mean, we didn't have anyone. We took numerous rounds of applications, and the people that had the 720-hour recruit, they participated in our interview and said, yeah, I'm interested in the job. By the time we got their background done, yeah, I got hired full-time by XYZ department. So, I mean, we had to lower our standards educational-wise and recruit school wise, usually we've always had people that have already had the recruit school before they were put on the boat. That didn't happen this year.
And people are getting just a little bit more aggressive and boisterous that they have to deal with, so.
And to be clear, not to say that the folks that were out there didn't try, but
Oh, absolutely, they tried very hard.
it's all about being equipped with the right tools for
Yeah,
the
we
job,
had a
right?
good staff this year.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of, there's a lot of material that's covered in 720 hours of police training, and if you don't have that and you're put out there, that's why it would work far better to have one person that has all that education and a second person to operate the boat and stuff while the primary officer makes contact, and then the secondary officer can learn from that first one versus having two green officers out on the boat that went through 25 hours of training here. I mean, 25 doesn't compare to 720, and that's why the state does that. They're only allowed to work 1 year without having the 720 hours of training.
How are we feeling about police budget?
Just a question on the health insurance line item. I noticed, and I know part of the increase is because if we're going to approve the potential addition of a full-time police officer, we have to budget for a family health insurance. I get that. But if you look back at the last couple of years, 2021 actual was like 92,000, 2022 projected actual 98, and 2023 budget proposed 151. Now, a part of that is the increase in the health insurance costs year over year, and then the other part is is budgeting for, I guess it'd be $20,000 worth of insurance for the new guy. So maybe the math is right, now that I
5%.
think about it.
Yeah, and,
The 5%.
insurance changes. So we always budget for a full-time, and sometimes when we have openings, then we budget for a full-time, but maybe they take payment in lieu, or maybe they only need a single. So you always have those kind of rotations. I mean, you'll even experience that now that we've made the insurance decisions. You might see people pick up our insurance, and you might see people leave our insurance. So that's, we did budget for family for this potential new officer, but we've had others join us that didn't need a full family plan.
Beautiful. Okay. So if it comes in under budget, then what happens with that money the next year? It rolls into the prior year
So
thing?
in the police department budget, their capital stays with them, their capital outlay, or if they had committed funds like these donations. Otherwise, police rolls back to general.
Goes back to general.
Yep. And you can see right now from your levy worksheet, there isn't any levy in general, cause we have savings either from the general fund or from all department funds to fund the general fund expenses.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on police?
Are we feeling good about police? Do we need to see police again, or we're okay?
I'm good.
Okay, do we wanna take a motion, since we took a motion for, Public Works for that new employee, to formalize that?
I'll make a motion that we add the community service officer / patrol officer position as it was presented and budgeted.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
All right, now we move to fire. Fire does have an updated budget from the budget that was presented. So if you wanna look at the one that is stamped for September 27th, that is the most current budget. Your difference from what was in the packet, to what you received today is we did get our final number from the town of Saratoga on, services that we provide them for fire coverage. So we had budgeted that flat, but the clerk did send us that updated number. So that's the difference in the budget from what was in your packet to what you had at your table tonight.
It's roughly $2,000.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
What happened to the,
So there was also 2 memos in the packet that talked about that command vehicle replacement and the adjustments to the upfit, I was gonna say uplift, upfit to 612. Oh, did you need that, Lori? Did you see a piece fell? So just going through revenues, they wouldn't have prior year revenues next year. That prior year revenue was a piece that we had completed for the purchase of the SCBA's. Usually, again, besides their insurance dues, or if they have capital outlay, prior year revenues cancel back to general. So that's why that's a 0. Your projections for your insurance dues and your capital is just, your expenses from last year minus your income and your carry forward. Insurance dues, we left that flat. When we get those numbers, again, might be a slight increase, but leaving that flat for budgeting purposes from the state, what those would be. And your Firewise was moved to highway. Other than that, and your fire signs moved to highway, fairly flat. You're gonna see that 12% increase, cause we did get that final number from Saratoga. Your property sales do reflect what we had talked about last time in the capital plan, minus 601. So, I'm just gonna pull up that capital plan. So it's going to reflect your $17,000 for the sale of Command 1, $5,000 for 632, $5,000 for 652. I should say 632 is the light rescue utility, 652 is the hazmat, and $1,500 for the John boat. That's reflecting in that 28.5. In turn, on your expenses, again, you're gonna see your 4% wage increase. You're gonna see the part-time wage went down this year because of Lifestar. We just haven't had as many calls for the first responders, so you're gonna see that big decrease there. Health insurance, retirement, life, unemployment, fairly level. Training and dues, you're gonna see an increase as we have a newer crew. We've had a lot of new recruits, a lot of new volunteers, so increase in that training budget. Operations, you're also gonna see an increase, because we do have some funds in there for if we purchase some additional equipment next year, mainly Command 1 and getting ready if we did some bigger adjustments, likely in 2024. And you're gonna see our end of year for operations is gonna end at approximately 72. I did note, which is on the 3rd page of their budget, that there was 3 really big expenses that came out of operations. We had a pump repair. We had 602 needed some engine repair. That was an offset for an insurance claim. And then we had those SCBA's purchase. So that was the offset in their revenue from donations that they had received, but you gotta spend out of an expense even if you take in the revenue. So that's what skews that budget for the year end a little bit higher.
Where's the offset for the insurance claim?
The offset for the insurance claim is in the revenues under fire insurance recoveries, where you see end of year the $9,948. And I think the slight difference in that was just at the end, a little bit less in labor or a small thing that they didn't complete. The numbers are almost identical. So here,
What about
go ahead.
Another question, the $1,000 that they got for a Quick Trip for the SCBA's.
that is in fire donations where you see that 24,000. So that 24,000 is a Quick Trip donation, Visit Rome grant, and ACEC roundup funds are all in there.
But the Visit Rome was used towards the SCBA's,
Yes,
correct? So
yep.
the $1,000 though is above and beyond,
It-
because they got the money from the fire fund? Help.
There was some additional cost that was paid for from the fire fund for the SCBA's, but that $1,000 is in donations from Quick Trip.
Right, so that's above and beyond than what they needed, so that'll be used towards the other purchases that they make this year for the SCBA's?
The purchases are all done for SCBA's, so it could have gone into those purchases out of operations, but it was added to the overall fire department budget. The $1,000 was added just in
Oh,
donations.
I thought they had more they needed to purchase this coming year.
No, there isn't any additional
Okay.
purchase. No, next year. They have 4 for next
This
year.
coming 2023,
2023, they have 4, yes.
okay.
So, I just wanna note, cause all budgets are presented as being balanced. Their revenues equaling their expense, even if they don't intend to really spend that in the expense. So, under your fire insurance dues, you're gonna see fire prior year insurance dues reserve. We don't intend to spend that $74,000. We keep that in a reserve for our fire insurance dues, so it continues to roll over, because we wouldn't wanna spend all of that 2% money in one year, but we still present a balanced budget. So that's why we don't intend to spend that, but that's why you see that number of the 97, that encompasses your reserve, and then $10,000 for LOSA, that's Length of Service Award, that we offer to the volunteers. It's a retirement program that we offer. Your gear replacement and your fire inspections. And then under capital outlay, you're gonna see that we do put some in for that vehicle replacement fund. We're proposing $4,500 for vehicle and engine replacement. Again, that capital does roll with fire year to year. We have the 66.5 for a Command One purchase and 4 SCBA's. And then that balance of the 17, again, just so we balance, we don't intend to spend that, but that would be a balance that we'd be keeping going forward in capital outlay. Some year, if we do purchase a new engine, we could utilize that as essentially a down payment. We'd have, 17 plus 8,000 going forward next year, that if we had expenses with that truck, it would be a starting point.
Okay, you said 66.5 for Command One and 4 SCBA's.
Yes. That comes from our capital improvement sheet that we had looked at last time. We were looking at 55 for the Command One and 40 for the SC.
49.5 for Command One.
I have 55 for Command One.
Is that on this sheet? Yeah.
It's on the long spreadsheet.
It went up?
We had put in the vehicle purchase plus lights, radio, equipment for the inside. So I bet the vehicle purchase is 49.
49.5.
Yes.
Was the.
And then there's outfitting, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And if I remember right, having the new Command One was going to allow the retirement of some of those other vehicles, along with the upgrade to the one truck.
Okay, that Command One,
We,
it says it's not conducive as a utility type vehicle, but an SUV is a utility type vehicle. But I had asked the question last week about the predecessors saying that that's good for the vault desk and the radios and such, but now a Super Duty diesel F-250 is going to be better. How?
we'll have you come up to the mic, chief.
So I can't speak to what any of the predecessors had to say. I was not present for their, or nor could I see what their thought process was. But the F-250 that we are proposing is a gas engine. We did not look at the diesel. It's a $8,000 motor upgrade for the diesel and $1 more a gallon for fuel. So the diesel was not an option that we put into it. If it was in there, it was a typo. And the sport utility vehicle, which you're referring to as the Explorer, has no hauling capability. There's no storage areas available. I went to pick up a couple batteries this past week and have to put them in the floorboards on the back seat because they're just the back area is filled with a box that with a couple drawers that holds some materials, and both of our other pickup trucks have fire suppression units built into them, which occupy the entire box. When we finish up after a fire, we need to be able to haul our hoses home. If we had a pickup truck, we could load them in there, not have to come back and borrow a truck from the DPW, if it's available, to be able to haul our stuff home. To run to the DNR and pick up foam. You pick up 10 5-gallon pails of foam. There's nowhere to put them. We have to use we have to get something from somewhere else. And then also with the ability to get through a little bit tougher weather with a little bit higher ride. So the sport utility side is we're not actually looking for is more to be able to haul the things. The sport utility vehicle is not able to pull our pontoon boat. It's a big boat. It does not have the capability of suspension, brakes, or transmission power to be able to pull that thing up out of the water. So it's all things or our UTV trailer. So that's all things that this vehicle would be able to do that a sport utility vehicle is not able to.
Do you have a newer truck than the 2003?
The 2003 is our oldest pickup
A
truck.
newer pickup truck, though, than the
The
two.
670, our rapid response vehicle, is a 2021 Chevy 3500 that we built into that rapid response that has the ultra high pressure unit in it.
So is that able to pull anything?
In the event such as a wildfire or something like that, that would be dedicated to fire suppression already. So you don't want that as your tow vehicle.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
If we move forward with this, I would propose that we retain the 2017 Explorer and dispose of the old Escape that we have. Town vehicle.
We actually talked about that briefly. I think there's actually less miles on the Escape than there is on the Command One, but it's a possibility, I guess, if we thought about it briefly, yep.
While you're on the, is that 2003 newer than some of our public works trucks? I mean, it's the same checkbook. I mean, is that something that can be used in public works?
I can tell you that 2003's been used hard.
Just-
It was an
That
emergency
one is
response.
pretty beat up,
It was an
yeah.
emergency response vehicle that was
Just-
driven
Just
hard.
asking, just asking. I mean, because I know we've got older beat-up trucks over there, and one was even donated by one of the power companies. Just thinking, we own it already, but just a thought. But I happen to agree with, that's a lot of money right now for a new vehicle. I happen to agree with the 601 engine, get rid of the Spartan. I know it's 20 years old, it's only 12,000 miles, but I mean,
30 years old.
30? Oh, I thought you said 20 last
It's a
time.
1991.
Oh, all right, if that's, but upfitting of the 212 with the ladder rack, I saw one out there the other night too with the ladders and that, I could see that. And if it's gonna reduce the CVAs, then that sounds reasonable. If you don't need the hazmat trailer, that makes sense. So you get help with hazmat from Juneau County?
Correct.
And emergency response, Jane doesn't do emergency response out of Adams anymore, or?
She does do emergency management out of that, but the
Hazmat comes from
hazmat would
Juneau.
come from Juneau.
Okay. And then we'll get rid of the 632, and you don't need the John boat. So really then, there's not, okay, I'm fine with that. I can make a motion to do that. I'm fine with all of that, if you want a motion for that. Want me
Yeah,
to do
let's
that?
repeat that.
All right, I'll make a motion. You guys want me to do that? We in agreement with that, you guys? All right,
Well, let's hear it.
Well, let's hear it.
you,
I'm not, you said a lot of things there, I'm not sure exactly.
All right, I know you're on,
You wanna break them out?
yeah, okay, I'll do that. I'll, move that we, surplus the 601 fire engine, the 1991 Spartan. Is that okay like that? That,
Well, I would put them all together,
Oh.
yeah, and
oh, he wanted them
Well,
broken.
some of the functions, yes, but you're talking about surplus in one engine, but purchasing a new one, right?
No,
nope, this would just be surplusing the one that hasn't been utilized in 5 years. Although it did get moved out on Monday.
I have 601, the 1991 Spartan.
Those are synonymous.
Yep, then you,
Oh.
and 632, the light
no, they want me
rescue.
to do them one at a time, so I moved that we.
Well, that's a package deal, you can't do all that individually.
He asked me to.
You
Oh,
could, sure.
All right.
If you wanna put it, oh, go ahead and put it the way you were gonna do it originally.
all right. Okay,
But we may have to parse it, but go ahead.
all right. So I move that we surplus items engine 601, 1991 Spartan engine 1250 GPM pump. Is that okay like that? Or do you want me to spell it out with the upfitting of 612?
Yes, and it would say that you would set the minimum bid
Okay,
for that sale at $15,000.
setting the minimum bid for sale at $15,000.
Then we don't have to return it back to town board for surplus.
Okay.
Okay, second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion's carried.
I move that we sell the number 652 hazmat trailer for a minimum bid of $5,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
I move that we sell the 2003 Chevy pickup number 632.
For a minimum bid.
Oh, for a minimum bid of $5,000. If it's that beat up, you really think you can get that much for it? Good luck.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
I move that we sell number 661 John Boat, or 1998 14-foot flat bottom John Boat with the 2007 25 horsepower Mercury outboard for a minimum bid of $1,500.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
And I'll move that we maintain, use of Command One 2017 Ford Explorer until we come up with a more comprehensive capital, what did I say earlier? You said it, you agreed.
Capital plan?
Yeah, capital plan for all of our departments.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I move that we maintain use of Command One, the 2017 Ford Explorer command unit, or command vehicle.
Okay, thank you.
Could we add, would you be willing to add to that motion then that we would replace the tires on Command One immediately?
Oh, I figured he did that already in 2022, it said on here.
We
Oh,
did
he
because
didn't?
we were, if we sold it, we wouldn't redo the tires on it.
Okay, with replacement tires for cost of $1,000.
How about we go not to exceed 2,000, just in case the cost of the tires is more when we get there?
They're not that much. I just put new ones on our truck for 1,500, so not to exceed 1,500.
Got it.
Do I hear a second? I'll second.
Okay.
In
We can
discussion?
Talk more about it. Would that vehicle be available to all staff, or will you retain sole access to it, such as the current vehicle is?
It would be the chief's vehicle, but at emergency time available to all staff as currently is with the current command one.
The majority of the time it
You're
would be
thinking
with the
keeping
chief.
this and still buying a truck?
No, not keeping, no,
Oh,
I'm not on board with your motion. I mean, my thought is there's more utility to a truck than there is the SUV for what's being proposed. We're still reducing vehicles in the fleet.
As long as we're on discussion too, you are looking at a truck for utility, hauling, and towing. Did you look at the 1500s, 150s instead?
Did not.
They're like 10,000 cheaper right off the bat. So, and you get a Ford that'll pull up 13,000 pounds with a 150. So, just an alternative. I know because I'm looking for one right now.
out on the government site too, I mean, I'd like you to come back. I move that you come back with figures for an F-150.
Is that procedure work? You had a motion and
We got a
second,
motion
right?
and a
Oh, I'm
second,
sorry.
so
Yes, I'm sorry.
we can-
If you would withdraw your motion and withdraw the second,
I'm sorry, yes,
otherwise you'd have to take a vote on that.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay. So price out of 1,500.
Other than that, are we comfortable with the fire department budget? Are there other items that we have concerns or questions on?
I think I semi-spaced off while you were talking about, but why is the annual diesel maintenance DOT inspection so much higher? It was 6,800 and its proposed budget for 23 is 36,000.
All of our repairs have moved to the outside sources. Without them being done in-house anymore.
Okay,
the costs
so
have been-
It
have
took things from
increased.
other lines and moved it down. Okay, thank you.
I wanna know, I wanna know what the thought process is here with replacing this 603, 2005 Pierce Quantum, currently as their first out engine.
603 would just be moved to the second position to maintain our compliance with NFPA guidelines.
Yes, I know what the compliance is with NFPA guidelines. Same with NFP guidelines on the tires. So, and I heard you say that those are opinions, and we've run into NFP guidelines over the years. So, my question is to the board, what is the thought process on the $800,000 fire truck that was discussed at the last meeting? Replacing these two vehicles on this that we were given last time.
But we're not going forward with that at this point.
Is that a 2024 question, I think, wasn't it?
Well, we have to have some commitment now, because in order to spec that truck, it probably will take 24 months before arrival. So, that's why we started the conversation now, because we will need to know in advance in order for them to build that equipment.
But if we if we act anything on it now, we're not committing to buy the thing in 2 years, because they have to get us a price on it first, right? But it's like building a house. You gotta get the plans, you find out how much it's gonna cost, and you decide if you wanna build the house.
Correct.
I mean, at some point, I'm sure a company will ask for a down payment in order to build it, right? They won't.
Well, right,
Yeah, but
they're not gonna
we're-
build it without us providing, but at this point in time, if we're just speccing it out, we're not committing we really don't know what it's gonna cost until they tell us how much it's gonna cost.
Correct. So, just so I have
Which
it.
then allows us to have that bigger, deeper discussion on the whole capital thing.
So as stated in that equipment proposal, we're requesting permission to begin the specification process to obtain building pricing estimates.
Okay. But we're not committing to actually purchasing the thing
Yeah, I
yet.
thought that's where we left it, just get more information.
more
Okay, I just wanted to be clear in that, but then I think it stands that we should ask all of our departments to come up with Jamie in the lead, cause it is in her job description, that we have a capital improvement plan for all of the departments and their equipment. Not just a snowplow here and a fire truck there, and we've got police cars that we're 4 cars behind right now that are 2017s. Because we're talking about getting rid of 2 of these, which quite honestly, I don't know the age of these and how many miles are on them. And I don't know, I read another NFPA guideline that said they aren't going by their recommendation, which also included an executive summary, that says their recommendation won't be out till 2025 as to replacing these types of vehicles, and this is a 2005 Pierce Quantum. So I guess that's what I really want us to have, is a serious discussion about all our equipment in all of our departments.
So again, it's not a replacement. It is moving to a second line and having a newer, modern piece of equipment to be the front line. So we're not saying that it's done and that its value is done for our town. What we're saying is that we have to keep up with what's happening.
Oh, and I respect that, Mark. I understand that completely, and I'm reading just to learn and understand, and I respect your work and what you're doing. But I'm also seeing in those articles, and also what the Towns Association, what they're saying, and we've just talked this evening too about finding people and volunteers and protective service type people, is that what they're saying in these articles is that the bigger these are getting, these volunteers don't even want to drive them, and the piece of equipment that you've shown us is rather large. And are we gonna have enough volunteers in 2 years that are even gonna want to drive? So those are all the things that we, as people that are gonna use taxpayer dollars to buy these things, are we gonna have the volunteers to drive them? So those are what we all have to do to be smart enough about buying and investing in this equipment. That's all I'm asking about. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
So this one will return with, some homework on that vehicle purchase, and we'll have to rework numbers because the 601 wasn't in there for a surplus for next year, so now having those items with surplus, we'll have to rework some numbers and bring back.
There's funds in the budget, right, for the upfit, for the ladders and stuff?
Yeah, there should be funds within that operations for that outfit,
I
yep.
think you
Okay.
said up to 5,000.
Up
Is
to
that gonna be enough, Mark, do you think? The 5,000?
The actual ladders would come off the 601. Yeah, so it's all bracketry and
Yeah.
just a little
Yeah.
rearranging of things.
But not equipment purchase, which would be more, right?
Okay.
The equipment we have.
All right, okay.
All right.
All right,
So now we move to IT. IT is a pretty easy budget. It's flat for next year. Same amount of levy as in previous years. There are 2 big things, our operations. You can see what's included in that in the capital outlay. We have been budgeting for a while for the replacement of the server for our building. It does need to be replaced, which is why we have it in here. It doesn't need to be replaced immediately. And right now, the cost of servers is vastly increased. We have priced in the past about hosting that off-site through a cloud system, and it's not cost-effective for us. It would be much more expensive than us actually owning the server. So this is a relatively flat budget.
How come we haven't executed that project?
We just haven't needed to at this moment. The server is in good condition. It is getting to the end of life where we wanna make sure that we have it, that we're prepared for it, but we just haven't needed to do it.
That's when you.
End of life to
Well,
blow
well,
up tomorrow.
well, that's when you gamble that your 20-year-old server's gonna last one more year.
Or one more day.
Here
The
comes Chief.
hardware
Chief
or operating system or?
All of the above.
The hardware and the server's old back here, but the inflation on the servers right now from our supplier is astronomical, and even the desktops we're getting here, it's taking forever to get them. We do have the capacity on our other piece of hardware, cause it's virtualized, that we could shift the applications on this one temporarily over there should we have a failure, but the prices are just, we bought a server 3 years ago and they want triple the money for it
Oh, my God.
right now with inflation, and then it says delivery time is, your guess is as good as mine, they're not in stock, it's back ordered, so that's why we're just carrying it to next year.
This has nothing to do with our budget here, but I now feel very good that I bought my 2 servers back in January when they were $7,000 apiece.
This one was 5 and it's now 15.
Yeah.
It's gone up there bad.
Oh, yeah, it's horrible. Computers are horrible right now.
Okay.
Okay.
IT?
IT, I think
Good.
we're good on. It's a, again, relatively flat budget. Any concerns? Otherwise, that one would be marked as completed.
I'm so glad I'm out of that industry.
Okay. Solid waste. Solid waste budget, you're actually gonna see a decrease. That reason for the decrease is because the last couple of years, we've had some big projects. Last year, we had the paving project and we had the camera project. Next year, we do propose adding that $5,000 for chipping. The wood waste that comes in, again, we are starting to get charged for that. We'll RFP out to see if there is another option, but we truly doubt that there is another option. The gentleman that comes in and chips it, that's just his cost, and he isn't able to sell the chips like he could in the past. But we have applied for a federal grant for wildfire prevention that maybe will help us to cover that cost in the future. That would be a 5-year grant if we're awarded. We've been working closely with Amy Penn from the DNR. Brad has on getting that grant completed. We didn't reflect that because we don't know if we would receive it yet into this budget, but it would help for brush collection and for that shipping cost for the next 5 years if we were rewarded. So it would be it would be amazing if we did get it. Amy feels like we have a good shot, but that it remains to be seen, so we have it budgeted. The other piece that I will note, we've had some really good discussion at the library board about wages, going back to part-time wages. Our lowest wages for part-time were at Derek Hughes Solid Waste. Our seasonal laborers in Public Works, which would be individuals that are truly laborers, not really operating much equipment other than a general lawnmower. And then our library aides at the library. We did have a conversation about moving all of those up to a straight $15 an hour. The library budget that you'll see presented next week has those at $15 an hour. And this solid waste budget and the parks budget, you would see that at $15 an hour. So they'd be moving from about $13.94 to $15 an hour for that part-time wage. And again, that just goes back to trying to stay competitive, especially at the solid waste site. You have to work weekends because that's the main time that we're open. And you are working at the transfer site, which is glamorous in its own way.
Nice try.
So this would reflect that $15 an hour.
I had one question. Golf cart for $15,000?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that too.
Yeah, so we had a golf cart out there for a long time. I think we actually got that as a used golf cart. That golf cart broke down and it's not working. It doesn't work anymore. But that is just a means in which for the staff to get around on that site. Some of the staff have brought in their bicycles. If you're at the checking cards or if you're at the main building and you see something happening, by the time it happens, it's kind of already done and the car is leaving before you could get back there. The other piece would be on the roadside cleanup of Apache. They could take the golf cart to make sure that things that get blown out of trucks get picked up and got brought into the transfer site. So staff have been sort of ingenious with bringing their own bikes or their own like motor scooters, but that's just to facilitate moving around that acreage quickly.
Now, I'll speak on their,
Brown's Golf Carts, located here in Wisconsin, has some really nice units for $4,000 to $6,000.
Yeah, so you could buy a Kawasaki Mule for $16,000. I bought one last. It might be more than that this year, but last year they were $16,000 to buy a Mule, which is larger than a golf cart.
Would we
and
be
has a
open
dump bed.
to use?
Yes, I put it in there as a new,
Yeah.
in case we couldn't find the ideal use.
Okay, they've
But
got,
also keep in mind, We need a gas one, not a, I don't know if those are electric, or the battery ones. We need a gas one. So
I would
that
have to
might-
click around here, but yeah.
It's basically for a utility cart, golf cart is maybe the best term equipment.
We couldn't keep the battery alive in the winter. That's,
Yeah, I mean, I'd look more at a UTV with a dump bed than a golf cart.
Yeah.
I was
We
surprised
priced
at
it
the
out
amount
that
too.
time, but, like, we're just looking for the approval of having basically 15,000 available. to
Okay, I
purchase
see.
some.
Wouldn't necessarily be a golf cart, but some other term than golf cart.
I do agree they need something.
People
to
mover.
Move around there.
Thank you, because I have to speak on their behalf. The ones that use it, they work very, very hard, and they work from site to site, and you've got some people out there that really violate our rules. I mean, they dump things where they don't go, and they work very hard. They take the rakes and the brooms and the brushes, and so, but I figured you probably put the max amount in there, Brad, that you could, just in case you couldn't. Because I know that you've contacted, someone had said that, shared that you had contacted even Lake Arrowhead, but theirs are all, if they donate one, and theirs are all like leased, and they're battery operated and stuff too, and those, like you said, don't work in the winter, so if we can get a nice used one, that would be great. Thank you.
I like the ones with a dump in the back, going down a patch, makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Yeah, because then they can clean up outside the dump too, when they're, there's two of them, and they need, they can stay busy cleaning that up.
Is there a line item in there for milk bones?
it just comes out of the,
Comes out of some
Canned
break room
fund.
supplies.
Those are all donated.
Those are all
Yeah,
donated?
people donate
Oh,
them. from
cool.
there.
oh, I didn't realize they were all donated. That's super nice.
My
Anything
dogs
else?
like the dog bones.
We donate them baked goods too.
We good on solid waste?
Do we, and we're okay if we did the 15, we're okay with the golf cart, we don't need to see
Just
solid
keep it-
waste back?
Keep it down a little. 15's a,
Well, just don't call it
Fine,
a
it's
golf
got it.
cart.
yeah,
Call it something else.
Yeah.
Call it a maintenance utility vehicle.
with a dump on it, bit, yeah, for less than 15, a lot less.
Okay, what's the number you would like there? 10?
Well,
That's a tough one. I don't know what they run, but 15,
When I started pricing even a golf cart, electric, or sorry, gas with a dump on it, it's 12 to 15.
it's really not a bad thing either, because if somebody dumps something heavy and they have to pick it up and take it back over to one of the dumpsters, it's really kind of useful, and we've got some hardworking people out there.
leave
So-
it,
Okay,
leave it.
we'll leave it.
Leave it
Okay.
at 15.
Use your best
We'll
judgment.
leave it and we'll note that if we can spend less, we'll spend less.
We'll be watching.
Okay. All right.
All right, thanks.
Are we ready for our last budget of the night? I feel like there should be strobe lights. So zoning, you're gonna have an updated budget that was distributed, so you wanna be looking at the September 27th
Let's
budget.
save the best for last. There, she's sitting so patiently. Hers the easiest.
The only, change that you are gonna see from the budget that you previously had, is an increase in that end year projection for, the building inspector contract. We have had some, larger permits come in, and so we just wanted to make sure that we had a more accurate end of year projection for that. So that's the biggest change that you are gonna see from your, September 22nd to the 27th.
I think we need a bar.
You can see that the zoning, does well in revenues, so there is less levy that is used in zoning. And our permit numbers have stayed, they've increased, but not, they've been approximately the same, right? We haven't, although we might issue, last year's 60-some houses and this year 40-some houses, that total number has been fairly consistent over the last couple years. Some of that's because of some of the houses that we've permitted this year are much larger in size, and so that's a more costly permit. But we're taking a 3-year average on what those permit costs might come in at. Then as far as expenses, you're going to reflect our contract with the building inspector. Again, that's a contracted position. Then our zoning administrator, and your health insurance, retirement, those common items that have been reflected in all the budgets. Slight increase for training mileage and dues, and slight increase for operations.
Did we commit ARPA funds for that software for
For
Camping
camping
permits?
permits, no, we did not.
Okay.
With that said, we are, it'll be on the board, it'll just be reported at the board meeting, but our town website, it won't be supported next year. We have to do an upgrade, and they've made a partnership with a company called HeyGov that can do online payments through forms. It is an additional cost, but we were gonna try to explore that because it would just be integrated with our website through this separate company that they have an app service through. So that's one potential to take those camping permits. I will say Lake Camelot did a great job though this year.
Oh, well, if we can't find any employees, we're not gonna have that next year, so.
I know somebody's that's looking to add that to their services, so local small business.
Yeah, I mean, we still would be open to exploring that option to do the online payments. There still would be some cross-reference just to make sure that they had the correct, they had the sanitary, the permits. But potentially maybe even the software could do the cross-check if they've previously bought a permit, so those things would already be checked, but, it's still on our bucket list, so to speak. But not part of this budget. Emily, did you wanna add anything?
I do have a question.
I was like, somebody should ask Emily a question, it's her first budget year.
750 hours of an administrative assistant. You're getting a assistant already?
No,
That's Linda.
we split Linda's time between parks, highway, zoning, and clerk treasurer.
You must have said that when my ear was ringing really loud. That's why I was holding my ear. I'm sorry if I missed it.
No, that's Linda's position, but we split it between several, and Linda helps with the plan commission, agenda package and does the mailings.
Okay, did you happen, may I just back up a minute here, please? Are we done with Emily?
Unless there are additional questions.
In general, you're both comfortable with the training budget? Like, are there things that you've sought out that you want to do and that's included in this number, or?
I've been looking for more training opportunities. There's nothing planned, set in stone yet.
Okay.
We did a bunch of webinars that were offered last year. I say Emily did a bunch of webinars that were offered last year. But they were like $20 a webinar and it was all virtual.
Yeah.
There isn't much anymore, that you travel to.
Really?
And WTA conferences that we do travel to, oftentimes because we're a member and several of us do. Like sometimes we've did it where we've purchased 2 passes, but Amy would go one day and Emily would go the next day, and that's, we don't have to pay for every employee. We just switch off on who attends for which sessions are offered.
I'm just thinking from the perspective of things are always changing, and I don't know, we always wanna rely on legal expense to keep up, right? So,
I guess I wondered too, they've got a good, program down at UW-Madison, and then a lot of times you see courses offered, at your alma mater, but Madison has some good books and things like, in fact, I showed you that one in the WTA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Order stuff like that for yourself. I think I might maybe up it a little bit for her, that, look at some of those courses down in Madison and just see.
Yeah, for
But-
sure. I'll definitely continue looking.
Not that you're doing, but I mean, just give yourself more opportunities, that things are always changing, like you said,
I don't foresee, given the revenue that's brought in for zoning, that if an opportunity like that came up, that we
Wouldn't be
would
able to
restrict
find
it.
the money.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand it represents the $500, but if an opportunity came up, I don't think unless it was in Hawaii, that we would be
I'll start
like,
looking there.
We'll all go.
yeah, we would make it happen if something came up.
Definitely the commissioners get to go, right? So.
Okay, so we're good on zoning? We feel good about zoning? We don't need to see it back? Okay, awesome. Okay, so after today, a recap, we would bring back, highway, buildings and grounds, and fire. We're also going to add parks, library, and general to our meeting on October 4th. I'm going to put, I think, just to be safe, a budget conversation on our October 6th town board meeting. Maybe we don't need it, but then at least we have another one in there just in case. We still have one more meeting on the 19th.
Yeah, why don't we just do it then?
We can, if we're feeling good about today and our accomplishments for today, that's fine too. I just don't also want us to run out of time.
I did want to have a follow-up question for the police chief too, when I saw that for the hours for administrative assistant. We didn't touch on that. I meant to ask him, does he have enough hours for his administrative assistant?
Yes.
You do have enough hours? Okay,
Yeah, that one is actually budgeted at 1560, and that's right now divided in between two individuals.
and that's enough people, enough time? Even with the new code enforcement person?
Yes, because they'll do their own paperwork.
Okay, all right.
Good question. Yeah, so our last budgets that we have to review, Parks, Library, General, Rome Water Utility, Tourism, ARPA, and TID. Now, your ARPA and TID they're pretty straightforward budgets, right? Tourism also, it's just your 70-30 split. Rome Water Utility will be discussed on the 3rd at their meeting. It's Monday, not Tuesday.
On the 3rd,
The 3rd at
I can't make that.
okay, it's changed this month. We have to visit on that just to make sure we have a quorum, but, so if we're feeling good about that for our next two meetings, then we'll just have the regular board meeting for the 6th.
Sounds good.
Good.
Borrowing.
Well, that's gonna, I think that's for a discussion after we get this budget done.
So we get all the work's done,
Then,
but be prepared, what do you guys wanna?
I think the piece is the road maintenance piece, and what are potential options? If we increase the road maintenance piece, how much would we have to increase it to get some extra mileage of roads and what those roads would be? Is that what we're asking?
Yes.
Okay,
Up to 200,000.
if we increase the road maintenance budget up to an additional 200,000.
Well, we're talking about the MFL money, I think. And then ultimately, it's gonna lead back to our conversation about what are we borrowing, if we're borrowing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can I get a motion for adjournment?
yeah, you-
Before we adjourn,
depends
All
on
right,
how far
go
you have
ahead.
to go.
Tuesday, October 4th, I cannot attend unless you all would afford me the ability to participate remotely.
Do what?
Participate remotely?
Well, of course.
I'm good.
They did that for years.
Yeah, I mean, we still have that in place for participating remotely. I will have to add the WebEx to the agenda for that one, so if anyone else wanted to participate remotely, they could, but if the board is comfortable with that.
If it means him being able to attend the meeting, I think yes.
Absolutely, it's
Okay.
important.
Thanks.
Did you motion to adjourn?
Uh,
Ask for one.
Oh, I thought you.
no, no.
Amy's
I
like,
move
I'll
that
make
we
it.
Second.
I move that we.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We adjourned. Thanks.
5:54 PM.